Chapter 840, Brainwashed by Yunshu. Wei Lan was stunned for a moment. Little master, why are you asking this? She had already wiped Yunshu's hands. She got up and wrung the towel because she wiped Yuanji. We want to take a look at the other rooms after closing when there are no customers. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuanji said, Cousin said that she wanted to consider it, but she didn't agree. Yunshu snorted. I will definitely convince her. My sister likes me very much. She won't have the heart to reject me. Ha ha ha, you're praising yourself. Yunshu, you're getting more and more shameless. If you mock me again, I'll draw a turtle on your face later. Thick-skinned, he, Yunshu pretended to cover his mouth. Bien Yuanji quickly dodged to the side and said to Wei Lan, Sister, well, go back to the room first. Then he ran. Yunshu hurriedly chased after him. The two of them quickly entered the private room. Wei Lan stood on the spot and watched as their little figures gradually disappear. The corners of her mouth pursed slightly. Pfft, a familiar sneer suddenly came from the side. Wei Lan turned around and saw Qiuyue leaning against the pillar under the corridor. She had an expression that said, Am I right? She slowly walked in front of Wei Lan and pointed at the door of the room. You didn't believe me when I told you, but did you hear him now? They're going to stay until closing time and then check all our private rooms. Wei Lan didn't say anything this time. Qiuyue became even more smug. They treat this place as their own backyard. They can visit whenever they want. Who agreed? Why don't they take a look at themselves? Those esteemed guests wanted to visit, but our madam didn't agree. Just them? How prestigious. Wei Lan thought of Yundong's expression of gratitude and felt that she was not the kind of guest who would make unreasonable requests. Hence, he still defended her. Just now, it was just the thoughts of the two young masters. You heard it too. That girl didn't agree. But she said she'd think about it. She didn't say no. Perhaps, it's to appease the little masters. Qiuyue snorted. You're really stubborn. Alright, let's see if they'll stay until closing time. Let me tell you first, I won't be polite to such rude guests who make excessive requests. Our shop is backed by the wife of the prefecture magistrate. There's no need to give anyone face in the entire Xuanhe prefecture. After saying that, she turned around and left. Qiuyue, Wei Lan chased after her for a few steps before stopping. She turned her head and looked in the direction of the room. After a while, she returned to the hall. Meanwhile, in the room, Yundong was brainwashing Yunshu. Sister, don't you often say that we have to catch them off guard? Think about it. If you suddenly say that you want to inspect the shop and check all the rooms today, everyone won't have time to prepare. What you see will be the true appearance of the rooms, right? I heard a story from our teacher. He said that an emperor from the previous dynasty wanted to experience the suffering of the common people, but every time, he would mobilize a large number of people and tell everyone in advance. Then, everyone would know where the emperor went, so everything was prepared in advance. When the emperor left the palace, he would see the common people singing and dancing. The common people would eat their fill and wear warm clothes with a satisfied smile on their faces. Guess what happened in the end? Yunshu deliberately kept her in suspense. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 841, Ask Eldest Aunt. Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Of course, she knew that this kind of story was too common. However, when she saw that her eldest aunt was listening with interest, she did not interrupt and even asked, What happened in the end? Yunshu picked up a fry with his chopsticks and ate it. He took a sip of milk tea and lowered his voice mysteriously. After that, the previous dynasty was destroyed. This causal relationship had changed too quickly. Eldest Aunt Gu didn't understand. She looked shocked and asked, Why? Sigh, because what the emperor saw when he went to the common people was what others let him see. He didn't know what the common people's true lives were like. He felt that everyone was living well. There were no corrupt officials in the royal court, and the common people were well fed. Then, as the emperor, he didn't need to do much. He no longer worked hard to rule, no longer cared about the officials who were rich. He even increased the taxes and taxes. He wanted people to build a summer residence for him, wasting the people's money and forcing the common people to have no way out. Eldest Aunt Gu was enlightened. She nodded and said, "I think your teacher's story is quite good. We commoners have a hard time. Isn't that so?" Gu Yunshu immediately nodded fiercely. Then, he was stunned. No, that was not what he wanted to say. He looked at Gu Yundong and realized that there was no other change in her expression. He quickly changed the topic. "Eldest sister, look. We have to see the bigger picture from the small. No, the smaller picture from the big. Although New Tea Pavilion is small compared to the previous dynasty, the logic is the same, right? You suddenly did this when no one was on guard." Gu Yundong saw that his mouth was about to dry up and handed him a milk teacup. "All right, I understand. I'll get Lu Xing to go back and tell father that we won't be coming back for dinner tonight." Gu Yunshu's eyes lit up. "Eldest sister, you're the best." Gu Yundong tapped his head and said to Eldest Aunt Gu, "I'm going out for a while." It was not suitable for men to enter New Tea Pavilion, so Gu Yundong asked Lu Xing, who had driven over, to rest at the tea stall beside him. The business of this tea stall was very good now. There were especially many coachmen like Lu Xing who sent Miss and Madam to New Tea Pavilion. Gu Yundong returned after instructing Lu Xing. However, when she passed by the counter, she felt an unfriendly gaze. She turned her head to look, and the other party immediately put on a smile. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. This seemed to be the person who had ordered for them previously. She lowered her eyes and suddenly smiled. Yunshu, that brat, had a point. Xiao Yi maintained her smile. After Gu Yundong left, she snorted. She would wait for 2 hours to see if the stranger would leave. If the stranger did not leave, she would have to ask her to leave. Gu Yundong returned to the room and saw Gu Yunshu showing off to Bian Yuanji. "I told you that my elder sister dotes on me the most. Look, I just told her a story and she agreed. It made the other stories I prepared useless." Gu Yundong could not help but knock him on the head. On the other hand, Eldest Aunt Gu could not help but ask, "You've been here all afternoon. Will it delay your work?" She knew that Gu Yundong was very busy now. There were many things to do in the shop and workshop. "I won't delay. I can take this opportunity to rest." In fact, when she went out just now, she was still wondering if she should take down the brush and paper from the carriage to take a look. However, she instantly dismissed this thought. "I happen to have something to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 842, Chasing Gu Yundong Away. "What is it?" Eldest Aunt Gu asked. "Eat first. We can talk slowly." Gu Yundong brought her a piece of osmanthus cake. Eldest Aunt Gu had a small bite and chewed carefully. In the past, she had bought a few pieces of osmanthus cake in the county city, but they were not as delicious as the ones here. After taking another sip of osmanthus tea, she felt as if her entire life was satisfied. "Eldest Aunt, what are your plans for the future?" Gu Yundong asked softly when she saw that she had finished a whole piece. When Eldest Aunt Gu saw that she was asking about this, she immediately smiled. "Your uncle and I have already discussed this. Didn't Mrs. Ren say that your uncle's wooden carvings were selling quite well last time? I'll sell them. Although your uncle's legs are not good, his carving skills are getting better and better. Even if the little things aren't worth much, I can still earn a lot of money when there are more of them." Gu Yundong nodded. Eldest uncle had a skill that was already much better than many people. For now, he would make small wooden carvings. When his legs were better in the future, he could also make big ones. "Then have you thought of where to sell them?" Eldest Aunt Gu shook her head. I want to bring some to the market tomorrow and set up a stall on the ground to see how business is. Gu Yundong thought for a while. I know a market not far from Gus. It sells flowers, birds, calligraphy, paintings, and so on. The environment is not bad. Aunt, you can go there and take a look first. The small wooden carvings were also a work of art. There should be a market there. Eldest Aunt Gus' eyes lit up. Really? At first, she thought of finding a random place at the entrance of the market. In the past, when she was in Yongning Prefecture, there was no market in the county city to sell flowers and birds. Perhaps she couldn't come into contact with it, so she didn't know. Yes, the flowers in my mother's courtyard were bought at that market. The mother and daughter who sell flowers should still be there. The little girl's name is Xiao Yuan. If eldest aunt encounters her, you can accompany each other. They're quite good people. Eldest Aunt Gu was even happier. She hadn't even gone to the market, but she already had a companion. If there was anything she didn't understand, she could ask them. In the end, she had never walked around the prefectural city here. She was more or less worried, afraid that she would not be able to speak to the people in the prefectural city. Gu Yundong asked her about the price again. The price that eldest Aunt Gu and her husband set was really too low. This was the prefectural city, so they could still raise the price. Moreover, although Bien Han's craftsmanship was not as good as a grandmaster's, he was serious and meticulous. Every small wooden carving was done diligently, and the quality was definitely not a problem. Eldest Aunt Gu was actually not good at doing business, but she would ask. As Gu Yundong chatted with her, she slowly felt that she had become much more straightforward. As expected, eldest Aunt Gu was still the same eldest Aunt Gu as before. Knock, knock. Just as the two of them were deep in conversation, there was a knock on the door. Gu Yundong's voice stopped abruptly. He frowned slightly and looked in the direction of the private room's door. Gu Yunshu had already rushed over to open the door. He was stunned when he saw Xiao Yi standing in front of him. May I ask what's the matter? Xiao Yi still had a smile on her face and her attitude was still polite. She stood at the door and looked at Gu Yundong. Miss, it's already 3 p.m. 3 p.m.? So what? All right, I understand. Gu Yundong smiled and nodded gently. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 843, Fight. Xiao Yi saw that she was pretending to be stupid and did not know what was good for her, so she simply made it clear. Miss, it's like this. Ever since our new tea pavilion opened for business, there have been many customers every day. Whether it's the hall or the room, it's filled with people. Especially after noon, some customers still have to wait for seats. Gu Yundong frowned, but Xiao Yi continued to smile and said, it's the most crowded time now, so there's no room. A madam had tea and snacks in this room last time and was very satisfied. Today, she came over and asked us for this room again. Gu Yundong looked at her with a faint smile. How strange. There was actually someone who chased away guests. Gu Yunshu scratched his head and looked up at Xiao Yi. Didn't you tell that madam that there are already guests in this room? Xiao Yi lowered her head to look at him, then continued to look at Gu Yundong and said, Miss, look, you've been here for nearly 4 hours. Gu Yunshu was enlightened and could not help but widen his eyes. So you want to chase us away? He quickly turned around and walked to Gu Yundong's side. Eldest sister, she is a bad person. Xiao Yi was so angry that she almost fell backward. This stinky child. Gu Yundong saw that she could not maintain the smile on her face and finally said, but we haven't finished eating. She had been talking to eldest Aunt Gu just now and only eaten 2 pieces of osmanthus cake on the table. Gu Yunshu had finished his fries, but Yuanzi's chicken nuggets were still there. He wanted to eat them later. Xiao Yi also saw the table in front of them and felt even more contempt in her heart. She did not expect them to eat so slowly just to stay here until closing time. She had really learned something. You can take the food back. As soon as she said this, Wei Lan ran over while panting. She pulled Qiuyue out. Do you know what you're doing? Is this how you treat guests? Then, she bowed apologetically to Yundong. Miss, I'm sorry. There were too many things to do. She was too busy. I'm really sorry. Wei Lan did not expect that Qiuyue would really come here to chase away guests when she only went to the toilet. From the first day they came here as workers, Madame Dai and Miss Nia had emphasized that they were not allowed to be rude to guests or chase them away. They tried their best to satisfy the customers' needs. If they made rude requests, they had to reject them tactfully. Only those who were really unreasonable would be chased out and not be allowed to step into New Tea Pavilion from now on. However, this girl had never done anything out of line. She had brought 2 young children with her, but they did not cause a commotion to affect the other guests. It would be unreasonable for Qiuyue to chase them away like this. She lowered her voice and warned her, don't go overboard. It won't do you any good to offend the guests. What's there to be afraid of? We have Madame Dai. At this moment, Yundong had already stood up and was walking towards the door when she heard this. Therefore, this person was with Madame Dai. As expected, the conflict still emerged. Qiuyue refused to leave. Wei Lan tried to pull her a few times but to no avail. At this moment, a scream suddenly came from the hall in front. Following that, the round-faced girl from before ran over and called Wei Lan and Qiuyue. Sister Lan, Sister Qiuyue, bad news. Someone is fighting in front. What? Wei Lan and Qiuyue were shocked. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 844, Inquiry. Wei Lan immediately ran to the front hall. Qiuyue paused for a moment and turned to look at Yundong. She quickly followed the round-faced girl. Yundong stood where she was and was silent for a moment. Then, she said to Eldest Aunt Gu, who was standing behind him, Aunt, rest here first. I'll go over and take a look. I'll go with you. No, I'll be right back. With that, Yundong strode towards the main hall. Just as she turned around the large screen in the hall, she heard a commotion. There were many people in the hall. Some of them had already stood up and retreated to the side to watch the commotion. Yundong glanced at them. These people were very interesting. They were still holding cups and snacks in their hands, as if they were afraid that they would lose the food. The troublemakers should be 2 rich wives. They were very young and looked to be less than 20 years old. At this moment, neither of them allowed the other to look at each other. It was an exaggeration to say that they were fighting. They should have quarreled. There was a broken cup on the ground. Wei Lan and Qiuyue were persuading the 2 of them, but they didn't listen at all. Yundong took a few steps forward and walked to the anxious round-faced girl. She asked in a low voice, "What's going on? Which families are these 2 madams from?" The round-faced girl was stunned for a moment. When she turned around and saw that it was her, she only smiled slightly but did not answer. This was a private matter of a guest. How could she gossip in front of other guests, especially at such a time? But just because she didn't gossip didn't mean that others wouldn't do it. A girl standing on Yundong's right immediately told her excitedly, "You don't know, do you? Let me tell you, the one on the left is Mrs. Yu from the east of the city. Her family runs a cloth shop. The one on the right is also from the east of the city. Her surname is Tian, and her family is in the wine business." Yundong turned her head slightly and saw the girl's excited face. She held a cup of milk tea in her left hand and a loaf of bread in her right. Her eyes were shining as she stared at the 2 quarreling people, as if she was looking forward to them fighting. The round-faced girl also glanced at her. Perhaps because of her status, she did not say anything. On the other hand, the girl happily shared the gossip with Yundong. It said that Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian had a good relationship when they were young, but later on, they became worse and worse. They hated each other. If any family invited them to a birthday banquet, as long as one of them went, the other would definitely say that they were sick and would not go. Unless they had to, they would not see each other no matter what. You know them quite well. Yundong could not help but want to laugh. The girl was still a little proud. That's right. I don't have any good points, but I know a lot of things in this prefecture. Yundong was speechless. This girl was an informant. Miss, what's your name? My last name is Bao. You're really inquisitive. You didn't let this surname down at all. Yundong was speechless. Miss Bao continued, only this new tea pavilion has delicious food and comfortable places. This milk tea is even more novel. It made these two madams who don't like each other come over every day. They were fine before, but I didn't expect them to fight today. As Miss Bao spoke, she shook her head. Is it because Madame Dai and Nie Shuang are not around that they've become bolder? When Yundong heard her mention Nie Shuang's name, she could not help but glance at her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 845, My Surname is Gu. So, why did they quarrel? Miss Bao pointed at Mrs. Yu and said, although these two people don't mind appearing in New Tea Pavilion at the same time, Mrs. Yu used to sit on the second floor. Today, she sat on the first floor. Moreover, she sat in the seat that Mrs. Tian usually sits in. Yundong's mouth twitched. So they were arguing? Miss Bao seemed to have seen through her thoughts, so she nodded. Although it's a small matter, haven't they been resentful for a long time? Wouldn't they start arguing with a reason? She even dropped the cup. These two families were both merchants, and they were just ordinary merchants. They did not pay much attention to the rules, and they were both married. Therefore, they could quarrel in such a place. If they were like the Nie family, they wouldn't dare to quarrel with others in public. Even if they got married, they would be criticized. Miss Bao took another sip of milk tea and enjoyed being a bystander. In the end, she suddenly remembered and turned to ask Yundong, by the way, I still don't know your name. I've never seen you before. Yundong laughed. Didn't you say that you know everything about Shuanhe Prefecture? That was not cute. Wouldn't she have to inquire about it before she knew everything? My surname is Gu. With that, Yundong walked towards the two people who were still arguing. Miss Bao frowned and pondered. Gu? Which family was she from? She had no impression of her at all. Just as she was about to ask more carefully, she looked up and saw that Yundong had actually gone between the two of them. She was so shocked that she almost lost grip of her milk teacup. What was she doing in their midst? Couldn't she just watch from the side? She was not the only one. Xiao Yi, who was standing in front, was also stunned when she saw her coming over. However, she quickly reached out to hold her back. What are you doing here? It's already messy enough here. Yundong pulled her arm back. Xiao Yi staggered and almost lost her balance. On the other side, Weilan did not notice that she was raising her voice and saying to the two of them, Mrs. Yu, Mrs. Tian, calm down first. Let's talk slowly, I can't talk slowly. She was the one who threw the cup at me. She clearly wanted to murder me. You're really shameless. Who wants to harm you? You were the one who came to find trouble with me first. You took my place first. Your place? What a joke. Do you own this new tea pavilion? Did you buy this seat? It was originally reserved for whoever arrived first. You're amazing. You even want others to specially save it for you. You usually sit on the second floor, but today, you chose to sit on the first floor and even occupied this seat. You're clearly provoking me on purpose. The two of them argued more and more fiercely, neither giving in to the other. Yundong had a smile on her face. She stopped behind Weilan and patted her shoulder. Weilan's mouth was dry, but the two of them ignored her and continued to argue as they got closer and closer. If they were not careful, their fingernails would have scratched each other. Weilan immediately turned around when she was patted on the shoulder. She was even more surprised to see Gu Yundong walking over. Go to the kitchen and find 2 strong old women, Gu Yundong said. Wei Lan was stunned for a moment before she smiled bitterly. Miss, go back to the private room. I'll give you an explanation when I'm done. She thought that Gu Yundong was still angry about what happened before. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 846, She's Boss Gu? However, Gu Yundong said, Wei Lan, my name is Gu Yundong. I think Madame Dai and Mie Shuang have mentioned my name before. Wei Lan's eyes widened. Gu Yundong? Wasn't that the name of the 3rd boss of their new tea pavilion? She was actually the Gu family's boss. Wei Lan was suspicious for a moment, but on second thought, there were very few people who knew that one of the new Ming pavilion's bosses was Gu. There was no need for this person to lie to her now. Besides, the old women in the kitchen had all said that they had seen Boss Gu. If she wasn't, she would immediately be exposed. Thinking of this, Wei Lan hurriedly nodded and quickly ran in the direction of the kitchen. On the other side, Xiao Yi had just stabilized herself. When she saw her, she wanted to go forward and criticize Gu Yundong. Unexpectedly, Wei Lan did not see her at all. Instead, she bumped into her as she ran, causing Xiao Yi to take a few steps back. She pressed her hands against the edge of the table and barely managed to stand. She was instantly furious. She swung her painful fingers and said angrily, Wei Lan, what's wrong with you? Hiss. Wei Lan returned very quickly with 2 old women behind her. 2 old women squeezed into the crowd. When they saw Gu Yundong, their eyes lit up. Boss Gu. When Wei Lan heard this, she finally believed it completely. Her eyes were filled with excitement as she hurriedly greeted respectfully, Boss Gu. She really did not expect that the rumored mysterious Boss Gu would actually appear in front of her. She even thanked her. For some reason, Wei Lan's face was a little hot. Thinking about what she had done today, she didn't seem to have done anything rude, right? As for Xiao Yi, forget it, let's not think about it anymore. These were not things she should worry about. Boss Gu definitely knew. The most important thing now was to quiet down the 2 arguing madams. The new tea pavilion had already become a place to watch the commotion. Afraid that Gu Yundong did not know their identities, Wei Lan quickly went forward and planned to explain to her in advance. But Gu Yundong had already reached out and instructed the 2 old women to pull Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian away. Since the boss had given the order, the 2 old women naturally had nothing to hesitate about. They immediately hugged the 2 quarreling customers, who were about to attack, and dragged them back. Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian were stunned. They did not expect someone to dare to attack them. They turned around and realized that it was an unfamiliar old woman. They immediately stopped arguing and struggled slightly. What are you doing? Who are you? Let go of me. Let go. Only then did Gu Yundong step forward. Her voice suddenly rose as he called out to the left, Mrs. Yu. Mrs. Yu was shocked and subconsciously stopped talking to look at her. Gu Yundong raised her voice to the right. Mrs. Tian. Mrs. Tian also looked at her. The 2 of them were finally not as noisy as before. The entire hall fell silent because of Gu Yundong's voice. Xiao Yi's fingers no longer hurt. When she looked up, she realized that Gu Yundong was in control of the situation in front of her. She was instantly dissatisfied. She was standing far away just now and the 2 madams were arguing fiercely, so she did not hear the 2 old women call Gu Yundong boss. At this moment, they saw that this strange person was actually bossing around in her shop. She was too shameless. The 2 old women from the kitchen were even listening to her. Had they forgotten who was the master? Xiao Yi wanted to step forward, but Gu Yundong was already smiling at the 2 madams. Mrs. Yu, Mrs. Tian, are you dissatisfied with our new tea pavilion? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 847, She Wants to Subdue People with Virtue. As soon as he said this, the two of them, who had wanted to speak, immediately choked. Yundong was still smiling. In fact, she really wanted to get someone to take them out. How much business had their troubles delayed the shop? It would be easy to take them out. But she couldn't. She ran a shop. There were so many people watching here. How could she use violence? If she gave people the impression that her shop was fierce and would chase customers out when things didn't go their way, others wouldn't dare to come. Therefore, she wanted to convince people with virtue. She asked again, "Do you have any dissatisfaction with our new tea pavilion?" Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian suddenly came back to their senses and hurriedly shook their heads. "No, we are not dissatisfied with the new tea pavilion. We are just dissatisfied with her." Who would dare to be dissatisfied with the new tea pavilion? However, they were indeed arguing and fighting in new tea pavilion. The two of them suddenly reacted and instantly broke out in cold sweat. Yundong continued to smile. Oh, they had a tacit understanding. Even their words were the same. Since you don't have any dissatisfaction, why don't you calm down and talk about it slowly? Arguing hurts the mind. If you get angry too much, it's easy to get old. You two ladies are both young, beautiful, and outstanding. It's not worth getting angry over such a small matter, right? Just treat it as giving face to new tea pavilion. Sit down and talk slowly, okay? Yundong gave them a way out and the two of them left. Now that they had woken up, they finally understood where they were. This was Madame Dea's place. A family like theirs did not dare to cause trouble. Therefore, although she still looked angry, she did not argue anymore. Seeing this, Yundong turned to Wei Lan and said, "Bring the two madams to the room and serve 2 cups of osmanthus tea to calm down." It was naturally not appropriate to solve the problem in front of everyone. Yes. Wei Lan secretly heaved a sigh of relief and quickly led the two of them to the side room. The 2 old women also let go. Only then did Yundong say to the remaining people, "We've disturbed everyone today. Please forgive me. In order to apologize to everyone, I got someone to prepare some trinkets and let everyone bring them back later. Don't stop coming again because of such a small matter." She spoke eloquently and promised to give him something. Although it might not be worth much, this attitude made people feel very comfortable. Not to mention that they didn't dare to really blame New Tea Pavilion, but they had come over to drink tea and rest when they were disturbed. Their good mood was gone, so they naturally had a grudge. What's more, there was no lack of madams with husbands or sons in high positions present. They did not have to give Madame Dai face. They only pursued this quiet and comfortable environment. Yundong's words really made the madams who were about to leave stop. To be honest, the refreshments here were really delicious and novel. They didn't know what the trinkets were, but they were actually looking forward to it. Yundong asked the round-faced girl to clean up the place first before she excused herself and left. As soon as she left, the people in the hall suddenly reacted. This girl. Who was she? Was she a new employee in this shop? But her clothes didn't look like it. On the other hand, Xiao Yi was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly caught up with Yundong. Stop right there. Who are you? Who asked you to be in charge of our shop? You even gave us trinkets. You're really... Yundong turned her head abruptly and scanned her face with her sharp and cold gaze. Shut up. I'll settle the score with you later. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 848, Listen to Me. Xiao Yi was stunned by her cold gaze and stood rooted to the ground. She had only dared to speak ill of others behind their backs. Even if she chased the guests away, it was only because her heart was too arrogant for a moment. It was her first time doing it. Now that Yundong was looking at her, she felt inexplicably flustered. Yundong had already walked into the room. As expected, Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Yu sat on 2 sides and did not speak to each other. Wei Lan persuaded them softly and poured them tea. When they saw Gu Yundong enter, they immediately turned their heads away. Just now, Weilan had already said that this person was the owner of New Tea Pavilion. They had met Madame Dai and Nie Shuang before. This was indeed the first time they had seen this boss Gu, who was rumored to not even have come on the day of the opening. Gu Yundong sat down in front of the two of them and smiled. All right, there's no one else here. You can tell me what happened. Mrs. Tian was the first to speak. Boss Gu, I'm not an unreasonable person. No one wants to cause trouble for New Tea Pavilion. It's just that Mrs. Yu is too much. Not only did she occupy my position, but she also mocked me. Her words are too unpleasant. Mrs. Yu sneered. What an interesting thing to say. That seat isn't yours. If you hadn't come to find trouble with me first, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But you're usually on the second floor. You're clearly, seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel again, Gu Yundong waved her hand. Stop. Since both of you think that you have a point, why don't you listen to me? The two of them closed their mouths. Gu Yundong smiled and said, Mrs. Tian, every seat in New Tea Pavilion is prepared for all the guests. There is indeed no specific seat for anyone. Of course, I can understand that you come often and are already used to that seat. But Mrs. Tian, have you ever thought that you can change to another place and see other scenery? The second floor is not bad, and the rooms at the back are not bad either. You might not know this, but not to mention the second floor, even those rooms have their own scenery. If we change to a different one every day, when others ask about New Tea Pavilion later, Mrs. Tian will have something to say. Perhaps others will envy you, right? Mrs. Tian was a little unhappy when she heard her say that she was in the wrong. The last sentence stunned her for a moment. A thought flashed through her mind. That's right, not many people came to New Tea Pavilion. She could come every day because her husband held power and her dowry was generous. The other sisters-in-law and concubines in the family, and even her mother-in-law, had only come twice. In the future, when the family asked, her mother-in-law would tell them how spacious and novel the hall was, how sweet and delicious the milk tea was, and how delicious and fresh the snacks were. After she finished speaking, no one would ask Mrs. Tian anymore. If she went through all the places in New Tea Pavilion, wouldn't she be surrounded like a star? In the end, she was just being vain. Seeing that she did not speak, Gu Yundong smiled and turned to look at another person. Mrs. Yu, why aren't you sitting on the second floor today? Mrs. Yu was stunned. Actually, she had been thinking about Gu Yundong's words just now. They seemed to make sense. Hearing her question, she glanced at Mrs. Tian and said, I was originally on the second floor, but there was someone I didn't like on the second floor today, so I came downstairs. There were many people downstairs at that time. It seems that that place is not bad. Who knew that Mrs. Tian often sat there? She usually came early and went straight to the second floor. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. There are so many people who don't get along with you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 849, It's Over. Gu Yundong nodded, indicating that she understood. Then, she asked, Have you never said this to Mrs. Tian? What's there to say? Am I very familiar with her? I can't even be bothered to look at her. She walked in front of me perfectly fine and even blocked my light. Mrs. Yu rolled her eyes, as if Mrs. Tian was a dirty thing. With this gaze, even ordinary people would feel unhappy, let alone Mrs. Tian, who had a grudge against her. Mrs. Tian's anger was instantly ignited again. You can't be bothered to look at me? Then I walked in front of you and you mocked me? If your words weren't so unpleasant, would I have quarreled with you? You were clearly the one who provoked me first. Seeing that they were about to argue again, Gu Yundong said, Look, this is actually a very small matter. Mrs. Yu, don't say too much. If Mrs. Tian takes 2 steps, such a thing won't happen at all. What's the big deal? If I don't have a seat, I'll change it. If the two of them don't get along, they want talk at most, right? I know you were impulsive, but if you quarrel in front of so many madams and young ladies, I'm afraid the entire Shuanha prefecture will be in an uproar in less than half a day. It's not worth it to implicate your reputation and your family's reputation because of such a small matter. The two of them stopped talking. Actually, they had calmed down and knew that they had done something wrong just now. Even if they wanted to quarrel, they could not quarrel in New Tea Pavilion. Although their family was only an ordinary rich family, it was really embarrassing for them to scold each other in public like a shrew in the market. They would probably not be able to answer to their husband and mother-in-law when they returned. The two of them thought it through and felt that what Gu Yundong said made sense. Seeing that the two of them had calmed down, Gu Yundong smiled and said, "Can we just let this matter go? It's not easy for our New Tea Pavilion that has just opened for business. Take it as giving New Tea Pavilion face. I'll get someone to offer you some trinkets later." She gave them a way out, and Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian immediately followed suit. They smiled and said, "Thank you, Boss Gu." Then, the two of them chatted awkwardly in a gentle tone and let this matter pass. Gu Yundong smiled. Isn't that good? Damn it, it was not easy to be a female director of mediation. She was so tired that she was sweating. She might as well carry them out. Gu Yundong felt that she had to hire someone who was capable in this area. Have some tea. The two of them drank a cup of tea. After a moment of silence, they finally stood up and walked out of the room. Gu Yundong was the first to come out. Many people in the hall were waiting absent-mindedly. They craned their necks to look at the backyard. Especially that Miss Bao. She was standing behind the big screen, waiting to see the situation immediately. Xiao Yi wanted to go to the private room to take a look a few times, but she suppressed it in the end. The hall was still a little chaotic now. She still had to bring people to clean up and appease the guests. She could only suppress the dissatisfaction in her heart first. With Wei Lan in the private room, if anything really happened, it would be Wei Lan's responsibility. Thinking of this, Xiao Yi was not in a hurry. When Gu Yundong came out, everyone in the hall looked over. Miss Bao took a few steps forward and asked softly, "How did it go?" Gu Yundong moved to the side and Mrs. Yu walked out from behind her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 850, Trinkets. When everyone saw this, they were surprised. Oh, the two of them really stopped arguing. Not only did they stop arguing, but they also seemed to be able to talk calmly. They looked quite friendly when they walked together. Miss Bao's heart was itching. "Miss Gu, what did you tell them?" "Nothing much. It's not like the two madams are unreasonable people. This is just a misunderstanding. Once the misunderstanding is resolved, won't everything be fine?" Mrs. Yu nodded. "Yes, it was just a misunderstanding. I'm really sorry for disturbing everyone. I was just being impulsive. Please don't take it to heart." The madams and young ladies present waved their hands and said that they were fine. In any case, they did not lose anything. They had even watched a show. Later, they could chat with others. Miss Bao did not get any useful information and sighed regretfully. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and asked curiously, "By the way, you said that you would give us something. What is it?" As soon as she said this, an older woman beside her glared at her. "How can you be so unruly? Who asks for a gift? I'm curious." "Aren't you all curious?" That person should be Miss Bao's elder. Although there was blame in her words, it was mostly teasing. On the other hand, when Miss Bao asked that question, a few people who liked to join in the fun asked, "Yes, we're really quite curious." "Miss, what exactly is it? Let us see it." "All right, I'll go get it now," Gu Yundong said with a smile. She also knew that the two of them definitely did not want to stay here anymore, so she nodded at them. "Please wait for a while." She had agreed to give the gifts to them. With that, Gu Yundong turned around and walked towards the storeroom at the back. She had the key to the storeroom in her hand. Madame Dai had given it to her when she went to the Dai residence a few days ago. There were naturally no small gifts in the storeroom, but there were in Gu Yundong's spatial storage. Actually, it wasn't anything special. It was just her paintings. It was mainly because she had too many things in her space, but she could not take most of them out to use. What she could take out was not enough to offer so many madams and young ladies outside. Except, painting. Now that she had the conditions, she could make one painting a day almost every day when she was free. As time passed, wouldn't there be many paintings in the space? Moreover, it would not seem rude to give this. Hence, when Gu Yundong arrived at the storeroom, she found a larger tray and placed all the paintings in her space inside. Some paintings were simple and some were complicated. There were all kinds of flowers, plants, mountains, rivers, bustling streets, alleys, and food. Gu Yundong's mind was filled with imagination. She drew everything. At this moment, these paintings were all rolled up and tied with a red string. When placed on the tray, they looked a little high-end. Gu Yundong carried the tray out of the storeroom and Wei Lan happened to rush over. She handed the tray to her. Wei Lan followed behind her and said, "Boss, I don't know where Qiuyue went." Gu Yundong paused for a moment before continuing to walk forward. Does she know that I'm the boss of New Tea Pavilion? If she knew, she might really escape in fear. Wei Lan shook her head. I don't think so. She had wanted to find Qiuyue and tell her about Gu Yundong's identity. It was more or less a way for her to be mentally prepared. As they spoke, the two of them returned to the hall. Most of the people's eyes were on her, but Gu Yundong's gaze was on Mrs. Tian and the woman beside her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 851, Can you get out? Where did this woman come from? Why didn't I see her before? As Gu Yundong walked forward, she asked Wei Lan, Who is this? Wei Lan said, She came with Mrs. Tian. She seems to be Mrs. Tian's sister-in-law. As she spoke, she suddenly lowered her voice. I remember now. This sister-in-law seems to be Mrs. Ye's concubine's sister-in-law. She also married the eldest son of the Tian family's concubine. In that case, the two of them were in-laws? Gu Yundong frowned slightly. Just as she was about to walk to Mrs. Tian's side, she suddenly realized that Mrs. Tian, who had been comforted just now, had become irritable again. She looked at Mrs. Yu with uncontrollable anger. The woman beside her kept persuading her, Forget it, sister-in-law. It's not like you don't know her personality. Let's just take a step back. Anyway, I've already gotten used to what happened at home in the past. Get used to it? Mrs. Tian sneered. You're a concubine's daughter, but I'm not. I'm the proper wife of the Tian family. Why should I let her? A trace of anger flashed across the woman's face, but she quickly regained her composure and sighed. You're right. I implicated you. I shouldn't have followed you here. She provoked us when she saw us coming. She was actually targeting me. Otherwise, even if you didn't come, she would still find trouble with me. It has nothing to do with you. Sister-in-law, you don't have to take the responsibility. It's just that since things have come to this, the rest doesn't matter. I'm just afraid that it won't be easy to explain to your family when you go back. This matter will definitely spread everywhere. I'm worried that the rumors outside will be disadvantageous to you. Gu Yundong's face turned ashen when he heard that. Alright, she knew that such a small matter would cause such a ruckus. The two rich ladies were arguing without caring about the occasion. It seemed like there was a troublemaker here. It wasn't easy for her to persuade them. She just went to the warehouse to get something. Was the fire starting to rise again? With her bad temper, it seemed like it would not work to convince people with virtue. Gu Yundong stepped forward and patted the woman's shoulder. The latter turned around and looked at her in surprise. Gu Yundong was still smiling, but her words shocked everyone present. Can you get the hell out of here? The woman's expression changed drastically. She suddenly stood up. What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't care if you want to sow discord between Mrs. Tian and Mrs. Yu, but please leave this door before you speak. Mrs. Tian looked at her in surprise. The woman met her gaze and quickly denied it. I didn't. What do you mean by sowing discord? I'm just worried about sister-in-law. Gu Yundong did not have the time to argue with her. What did the Tian and Yu families have to do with her? The sisters-in-law started fighting. However, if they wanted to fight, they had to go home. You want to use our new tea pavilion as a raft on the spot? Dream on. Gu Yundong sneered. Do you think everyone is a fool? Do you think I don't have a temper? Get lost, Wei Lan. Remember her. She's not allowed to come again. It was just a shop, but it had actually become a tool for others to fight openly and covertly. It would be strange if Gu Yundong had a good expression. This woman thought that she had invited the two of them in with a good attitude just now because she did not dare to offend the guests or something. No matter what, the prefecture magistrate's wife was backing them up here. When it was time to be stubborn, Gu Yundong would definitely not lower her voice and be nice. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 852, Draw It Yourself. The woman's face turned pale. After a while, she looked at Gu Yundong with tears in her eyes and said, How can you malign me like this? You treat my sincerity as heartless. I know that I'm a concubine's daughter. You all look down on me. As she spoke, she covered her tears and ran out. Gu Yundong did not even turn around. She looked up at Mrs. Tian, who seemed to be deep in thought. She was also very speechless in her heart. She did not expect Mrs. Tian to be easy to provoke. Her temper was too easily ignited. On the other hand, Mrs. Yu had been watching from the side. At this moment, she walked over and thanked Gu Yundong. Thank you. Actually, I also felt that this quarrel was a little strange previously. It turns out that there was a villain causing trouble. Someone beside them whispered, That's right. When you guys were arguing, that person kept standing far away. Mrs. Tian immediately felt a little awkward. At this moment, she had gradually regained her senses. She immediately smiled dryly at Gu Yundong and said, It's my fault for not recognizing people well and causing New Tea Pavilion to suffer. I'm sorry, everyone. Since she had a good attitude, Gu Yundong naturally would not treat her coldly. Anyway, it was fine as long as she did not cause trouble in New Tea Pavilion. But it was impossible for Gu Yundong to still have a smile on her face. She asked Wei Lan to bring the tray over and handed them 2 paintings. This is a small gift from New Tea Pavilion. I hope the 2 of you like it. What's this? Miss Bao couldn't help but ask curiously. Gu Yundong took a roll and handed it over. Miss Bao blinked. For me? Gu Yundong thought about it and took it back. Hey, wait, I didn't say I didn't want it. Why did you take it back? Gu Yundong smiled. It's not that I don't want to give it to you. I just want you to draw it yourself. She placed the painting back on the tray and pushed the tray forward. These are all paintings. Take it as a gift from me to everyone. However, the scenes and items drawn here are all different. Some are simple, and some are complicated. The paintings are all rolled up, so I don't know what's on the paintings. Why don't everyone take a look and treat it as fun? Miss Bao's eyes lit up when she heard that. All right. This is interesting. The others also walked over curiously. The gift is actually a painting. This is quite elegant. It's more like letting us draw it ourselves. That will depend on everyone's luck. My hands are itching. Can I be the first to draw it? Hey, that won't do. Who doesn't know that you're famous for being lucky? I think you should be the last. The person in front covered her mouth and laughed. You said that I'm lucky. Even if I'm the last, I might still draw the best. Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere in the hall instantly became lively and harmonious. On the other side, Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian lowered their heads and left quietly when no one was paying attention. However, when they walked out of the door, they were suddenly stunned when they saw a person in the carriage at the door. Immediately after, the two of them smiled dryly and hurriedly greeted the person before leaving. As for whether they would come to New Tea Pavilion in the future, they did not know. In short, after Mrs. Tian returned, there would probably be no peace at home. Yundong naturally knew that they had left, but the atmosphere in the hall became more and more lively. Miss Bao was the first to draw a painting since she was the closest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 853, No Heart to Resist. Someone couldn't help but move closer to her. Quick, take a look at what's on it. Miss Bao was inexplicably nervous, especially since everyone's attention was on her. It made her feel as if she was holding a fragile item worth 10,000 gold coins. After a long while, she held her breath and carefully pulled off the red string tied to the painting, spreading it out bit by bit. Halfway through, she suddenly rolled it up again. It made the hearts of the others standing beside her skip a beat. Yundong could not help but rub her forehead. It's just a painting. Do you have to do this? Is there too little entertainment? After a while, Miss Bao opened the painting again. In the next moment, she let out a wow, and her face was filled with obvious joy. Those who were sitting further away heard this and became more curious. However, they were no longer young ladies. They still had to be more dignified. However, there were still young ladies of similar age who exclaimed, "So cute." Yundong glanced at it. Oh, it was the Qiuyue picture. She had drawn it when she saw a large group of children flying kites in Yongfu village last time. She suddenly had an idea. They were all big-headed and small-bodied. They were pulling the kite string in their hands as groups. There were also some who sat at the side and watched. Some were eating with food in their hands, some were teary-eyed and wanted to play but didn't dare to. Some were playing pranks. There were also two children fighting with two stalks of grass sticking out from their heads. Their postures were all different and vivid. However, without exception, they all had big eyes and small mouths. They were even cuter than dolls, making one's heart tremble. Women had no intention of resisting such a cute thing. Not only did Miss Bao like it, but even the people beside her were the same. Someone asked Yundong, "Are the other paintings all like this?" Yundong shook her head. "No, there are only 3 or 4 of these." Everyone was a little disappointed, but they still rubbed their palms together, hoping that they could get one of these 3 or 4 paintings. There were even people who discussed with Miss Bao and wanted to exchange with her. Yundong asked everyone to sit down. "I'll get Wei Lan to bring a tray over. Everyone will have a share." One by one. Although everyone was anxious, they all sat back down. As expected, Wei Lan walked past the crowd with a tray. At this moment, be it the guests on the second floor or the people in the private rooms, they all heard the commotion and came over. There were also a few children among them, but they were all restrained by their elders and did not make a fuss. Soon, someone drew a painting and opened it hopefully. Unfortunately, there was no such painting that she wanted. She was a little disappointed. However, soon after, she became slightly happy. This seems to be a charcoal drawing that's been popular recently. Is it a charcoal drawing? This drawing is too lifelike. Look, there's a shadow here. The people around them all looked over, including Miss Bao. The one in her hand was not a charcoal drawing. When she heard that it was a recent trend, a madam said, "I've heard of this charcoal drawing. My son has been learning it recently. Sigh, if only I could draw it later. How is this a trinket? This is clearly something good. Isn't it?" Discussions broke out in the hall. Everyone looked at Yundong in amazement. The people in the carriage outside the door had been watching silently. One of them could not take it anymore and said unhappily, "Madam, did I say anything wrong?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 854, She's the third boss. I don't know where she came from. It's fine if she became the master of our new tea pavilion without permission, but she even became the master of the place. Wei Lan just had to listen to her as if she was the master and let her win people over. The person who spoke was Qiuyue, who had disappeared earlier. At this moment, she was standing beside the carriage, and the person sitting in the carriage was Madame Dai. Qiuyue originally wanted to stop Wei Lan, but when she thought about how Wei Lan had been going against her today, she felt especially uncomfortable. In New Tea Pavilion, the person with the highest chance of competing with her for power was Wei Lan. As for Su Qing, she didn't care at all. If she took this opportunity to make Madame Dai's impression of Wei Lan worse, wouldn't that be killing two birds with one stone? Coincidentally, Madame Dai had actually come this morning. Qiuyue knew that she would go to a friend's house not far from here in the afternoon, so she simply ran over to look for her. When she returned, she happened to see Gu Yundong scolding Mrs. Tian's sister-in-law. She even chased away our new tea pavilion's guest and directly said that that person was sowing discord and offended Mrs. Tian and Mrs. Yu. This is too bad for our new tea pavilion's reputation. Madam, you can't let her off. The more Qiuyue spoke, the angrier she became. However, she did not hear Madame Dai's voice for a long time and was a little puzzled. However, when she looked up, she realized that Madame Dai was smiling. Qiuyue was a little stunned. Madam? Madame Dai finally glanced at her. Sowing discord? Isn't it what you're doing now? Qiuyue's face instantly turned pale. She hurriedly lowered her head. This servant doesn't dare. Madame Dai looked at her with disappointment in her eyes and did not continue. She only got the maidservant beside her to help her out of the carriage and walked towards New Tea Pavilion with a smile. Usually, she would have noticed it as soon as she arrived, but at this moment, her attention was focused on the paintings. No one noticed her arrival for a long time. It was not until she reached the counter that someone finally said in surprise, Madame Dai, you're here? Gu Yundong also turned around and smiled. As Madame Dai walked towards the guests, an older lady said, Madame Dai, where did you get these paintings? Doesn't your heart ache to send them out like this? I didn't take those paintings out. If she doesn't feel sorry for it, why should I feel sorry for it? That person was stunned. He glanced at Gu Yundong and asked hesitantly, where did Madame Dai find this female shopkeeper? She's so generous and treats those as trinkets. She gave them away just like that. Gu Yundong was dressed differently from Wei Lan and the rest, so everyone guessed that her status might be higher. Yes, you have good taste. Madame Dai became smug. She walked to Gu Yundong's side and patted her hand. She said to the guests, are you envious? But this is not the shopkeeper of our new tea pavilion. She is a boss of New Tea Pavilion. Boss? This was the boss of New Tea Pavilion? How was that possible? Although they had long heard that there were 3 bosses in New Tea Pavilion, the third one was too mysterious. They had never seen her before and she did not even come when the shop opened. As time passed, there were rumors that there was no third owner at New Tea Pavilion at all. There was only Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. However, they did not understand why those people had to fabricate a boss. They didn't expect that there really was one. Moreover, she had appeared in front of them at this moment. She was young but plenty of methods. She had even given them a trinket just now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 855, You're actually such a Madame Dai. Everyone present looked surprised. Many people had already re-evaluated Gu Yundong's status in their hearts. Miss Bao was even more shocked. She actually didn't guess. Yes, Nie Shuang had said that the third boss of New Tea Pavilion had the surname Gu. Moreover, she came and went in the hall as she pleased and chatted happily. Why didn't she think in that direction? Miss Bao was extremely vexed. To think she said that she knew everything about the prefectural city. Her face hurt. However, among the people present, one of them was even more shocked by Madame Day's words. Her face turned pale, and her legs were so weak that she could not stand. She sat on the ground. Why? How could that be? Was she the boss? The boss of the Gu family? Then why didn't she say anything? Was she deliberately watching her make a fool of herself? Wei Lan was the first to see it. Seeing this, she sighed inwardly and walked over to help her. Get up first. Later, go and apologize to Boss Gu. Perhaps Boss Gu won't make things difficult for you on account of Madame Dai. Xiao Yi suddenly pinched the back of her hand. Her neatly trimmed nails still scratched a bloody mark on the back of her hand. Hiss, Wei Lan cried out in pain. Xiao Yi, let go. However, Xiao Yi raised her head and looked at her with hatred in her eyes. You did it on purpose. You know that she's the boss of the Gu family, right? That's why you worked so hard to please her, but you deliberately didn't tell me. I didn't. You did. Xiao Yi grabbed her hand. You watched as I spoke ill of her behind her back. You didn't tell me anything and waited for this moment, right? Wei Lan, you're too sinister. You're simply crazy. Whether you believe it or not, I really didn't know that she was the owner of the Gu family. After I found out, I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't find you. You went to look for Madame Dai. Wei Lan pulled her hand back. Looking at Xiao Yi, who only had resentment in her eyes and did not know how to repent, she completely lost the desire to talk to her. She stood up and said coldly, "You're on your own." Then, she walked towards Gu Yundong. At this moment, Madame Dai pulled Gu Yundong and introduced her formally again. This is the third boss of New Tea Pavilion, Gu Yundong. She is very busy, so she did not have time to come here after opening. If we had not written to her to urge her, she might not have come. She is so heartless to throw this shop to us. There was intimacy in her words, and she sounded even more serious. Everyone present could tell that this boss Gu had a very high status in New Tea Pavilion. Gu Yundong said helplessly, "I'm not as heartless as Auntie says. Look, I came immediately after you sent me a letter. See how loyal I am to you." Madame Dai leaned closer to her and whispered, "If you're really loyal, teach me how to put on your makeup another day." Gu Yundong was speechless. "You're actually like this, Madame Dai." She smiled and nodded. "All right. That's good." Madame Dai was instantly satisfied. "Since you're here today, I have something to tell you. Let's find a room." Gu Yundong nodded. Madame Dai greeted everyone and excused herself. The others had the painting in their hands. They knew that the two of them had something to say, so they did not ask them to stay. Miss Bao wanted to know more about Gu Yundong. Unfortunately, she was glared at by her elders, so she could only find another opportunity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 856, You Have Good Eyes. Gu Yundong and Madame Dai walked towards the backyard. However, when they reached the screen, she stopped in her tracks. Madame Dai asked, "What's wrong?" "I'll introduce some people to Auntie." Gu Yundong pointed at Yunshu and the others who were sitting on chairs and talking to someone not far away. They had agreed to let them wait in the room, but it seemed like they could not wait any longer. They had already come to the hall. Not only was he here, but he and Yuanji were also playing with two other children of similar age. The four of them leaned on the table and looked at a painting. Eldest Aunt Gu was watching them from the side. The other two children's families were also present. However, perhaps because they could not speak to Eldest Aunt Gu, they remained silent and drank tea and ate. When Gu Yundong and Madame Dai walked over, the two madams stood up. Gu Yundong nodded at them before introducing Gu Dafeng to Madame Dai. "This is my aunt, Gu Dafeng." Madame Dai was surprised. "You found her?" She knew that Gu Yundong was looking for her eldest aunt and uncle. The last time Wenhuo went back, he did not mention this to her. That was why she was so surprised. Gu Yundong smiled. Yes, I did. Then, she introduced Yunshu and Yuanji. Madame Dai looked at the two obedient young kids and could not help but say, "Are your younger siblings so lovable?" Yunshu nodded. "Auntie, you have keen eyes." Madame Dai was stunned. Then, she covered the corners of her mouth and smiled. She said to Gu Yundong, as expected, "He's your younger brother. It's obvious that he learned it from you." No, she was wronged. Gu Yundong held her forehead and instructed Yunshu and the rest to have fun. She had something to discuss with Madame Dai. Eldest Aunt Gu said, "Go ahead. I'll take care of them." The two of them left the hall and went to the room at the back. As soon as they left, the two madams who were originally not talking to Eldest Aunt Gu immediately came over curiously and asked, "Is Boss Gu your niece?" There were also people who heard this and came over to inquire. When Yunshu and Yuanji saw this, they felt that something was wrong and hurriedly pulled Eldest Aunt Gu back to the room. On the other hand, the two children had become familiar with Yunshu and followed her with their short legs. The child's family was speechless. However, the people in the hall did not quiet down because of their departure. Instead, the discussion became more and more intense. Still, no one knew which family Gu Yundong belonged to. After some guesses, there was no result. Even so, they all liked the paintings she took out. Although some people were unlucky and only drew the simplest ones, it did not stop them from admiring it. Initially, Gu Yundong thought that some people would lose interest in leaving New Tea Pavilion after the matter with the two madams was over. But now, no one was willing to leave. Gu Yundong was very satisfied with this scene, and so was Madame Dai. When the two of them entered the room, Madame Dai heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I heard about Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian. It's all thanks to you being present today. Otherwise, if we let them continue arguing, we wouldn't be able to do business." She frowned. "I'm afraid they won't have the face to come again in the future." Gu Yundong had also guessed that Mrs. Yu might come again, but Mrs. Tian might not. "Auntie, I think we lack a shopkeeper." Madame Dai clapped her hands. "I was just about to tell you about this." As soon as she finished speaking, a sobbing voice suddenly came from outside the door. "Madame Dai, Boss Gu, I was wrong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 857, Returning to her original form. The sudden sound stunned the two of them. The maidservant standing behind Madame Dai frowned and bowed for instructions. "Madam, can you let me go out and deal with it?" Madame Dai looked at Gu Yundong. "What are your plans?" "Auntie, you can make the decision." "If I go, I'm afraid she won't be convinced." Madame Dai nodded and instructed the maidservant behind her, "Yuju, go ahead and let her understand what she did wrong." "Yes." Yuju nodded at the two of them and opened the door of the room. She looked at Xiao Yi, who was kneeling outside the door. This room was specially spared by Gu Yundong. It was in a corner beside the kitchen warehouse and was used as an office. It was quite far from the room where the other guests were and was not easy to see. Therefore, Xiao Yi's commotion did not disturb the other guests. Seeing Yuju, Xiao Yi hurriedly knelt down and took a few steps forward. "Sister Yuju, please help me plead with Madam. I was wrong. I was really wrong." Yuju looked down at her. "What did you do wrong?" I didn't know Boss Gus' identity. I was disrespectful to Boss Gu. I deserve to die." Yuju shook her head in disappointment. She still did not know what was wrong. Even if Boss Gu didn't reveal her identity, she's still a guest. There's no reason for New Tea Pavilion to chase guests out. Xiao Yi felt wronged and cried uncontrollably. "Yes, I was too anxious. I just heard the two young masters say that they wanted to stay here until closing time. They also wanted to tour all the rooms here, so I thought wrongly. Were you thinking in the wrong direction? Yuzhu sneered. When New Tea Pavilion first opened, many people had the same idea. They wanted to see the other rooms in the backyard, but how did Madame and Miss Nye deal with them? Have you forgotten? Xiao Yi's face turned pale. Yuzhu said, Madame has repeatedly reminded you that if you encounter a guest with such a request, you have to tactfully explain to the other party that this is not in line with the rules. If you encounter someone who is pestering you endlessly, you have to forcefully carry them out. But what about you? Not to mention that Boss Gu did not make a request in front of you. Even if she did, the first thing you should do is not to chase the guest away. Xiao Yi was completely speechless. She was just thinking that she was with Madame Dai. Such a small matter. Yuzhu sighed in her heart and shook her head. You don't have to stay in New Tea Pavilion in the future. Go pack up and return to the Dai residence in a while. Xiao Yi suddenly raised her head and immediately kowtowed on the ground to beg for mercy. No, Sister Yuzhu, I was wrong. Madam, Boss Gu, I was wrong. Please don't chase me away. How many people wanted to come to New Tea Pavilion but could not? Madam had once said that if they could do it well in New Tea Pavilion, in the future, when the shop opened elsewhere, old people like them could be promoted as shopkeepers. At that time, they would be much better than the maidservants and grannies in the residence. If there was someone with outstanding ability, Madam would even strip them of their slave status and live a glorious life. This was a job that many people would envy. Xiao Yi knew that even Yuzhu, who was in front of her, was tempted. Now, she had finally reached this step with great difficulty, yet she was going to be beaten back to her original state? No, that's not right. It's worse than the original. She had already been abandoned by Madame. Even if she returned to the Dai residence, it was impossible for her to do the same job as before. She would probably be exiled to the manor and die of old age there. Xiao Yi cried bitterly, but Yuzhu frowned. She found two old women from the kitchen who had come out to watch the show and quickly pulled her down. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 858, Candidate for the Shopkeeper. Xiao Yi was pulled down, and it finally quieted down outside the door. In the room, Madame Dai could not help but shake her head and say, It's my fault for not recognizing people. I've troubled you. Auntie, you're being too serious. People change. How can I blame you? Besides, I didn't suffer any grievances. She just had a bad attitude. She didn't hit or scold me. It was just that this attitude was not suitable for New Tea Pavilion. Forget it, let's not talk about her. Let's talk about the shopkeeper. It was just a maidservant. Madame Dai would not really take it to heart. It wasn't that she couldn't leave this shop. Instead, the shopkeeper's matter was the most important thing. In fact, there was a shopkeeper in New Tea Pavilion in the beginning. She was also found by Madame Dai. Moreover, she had been a shopkeeper in a jewelry pavilion in the past. She was also capable. Madame Dai trusted her and complied with all aspects. Logically speaking, it was not a problem to manage this milk tea shop. That person was also very confident at first, but after more than 10 days, she suddenly suggested that she was not qualified and asked Madame Dai to choose another talent. Later on, Madame Dai learned that although this shopkeeper had worked at the jewelry pavilion in the past, she also served some madams and young ladies. However, it was still very different from this milk tea shop. First of all, the madams and young ladies of the real rich families rarely went to the jewelry pavilion personally because they felt that there were too few. Instead, the shop staff had to customize for them and took the latest products from the shop to their residences. Secondly, the guests who came to the jewelry pavilion wouldn't come in batches like this. Those with insufficient status would be entertained by other waiters, and those with high status would be invited to the backyard to be received one-on-one. Thirdly, the shopkeeper's previous jewelry shop was not big, so this shopkeeper actually did not have any powerful backing. She was not confident and bowed too much to customers. This led to her being the same in the milk tea shop. She did not look as comfortable as Xiao Yi and Wei Lan, who were maidservants from the Dai mansion and Nia mansion. Madame Dai could not help but sigh in her heart. She wanted to find someone who could stand up straight, but such a person had the backing of a master. It was not easy for her to poach them. It couldn't be helped. The shopkeeper of New Tea Pavilion was gone just like that. When Gu Yundong went to the Dai residence that day, Madame Dai had told her about these problems while she was putting on makeup. Therefore, Gu Yundong had been thinking about this shopkeeper problem for the past 2 days. However, she did not have such connections. She still had to rely on Madame Dai or Nie Shuang. "Auntie, since you're talking about the shopkeeper, do you have someone in mind?" At the mention of this, Madame Dai's face finally lit up. "There's someone. I visited a friend of mine today because of her. My friend's family is in the capital. A few days ago, a nanny came back from the capital and said that she was here to retire. In fact, she didn't want to get involved in the disputes of the capital's main family. This nanny has some ability. The young lady of that family learned the rules from her. She has really seen the world. I finally convinced her to come to this shop tomorrow to take a look. When the time comes, I'll try my best to let her stay." "A nanny from the capital? Although she's here to retire, she's not old. She doesn't need to do anything in this shop. She's just here to oversee it. With her around, such a thing will definitely not happen today. When I was young, I was also in the capital and had to receive a few pointers from her. As long as she's willing to come, it won't be a problem. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 859, Gu Dafeng's target is firm. Madame Dai explained the nanny situation in detail. This nanny was a rather transparent person. Since she was unwilling to get involved in those disputes, she naturally would not interfere much in the residences when they arrived at the Xuanhe prefecture. If not for Madame Dai's early arrival, the nanny would have packed her bags and planned to go to the manor to truly retire. In any case, since she was unwilling to care about the matters in the residence, wouldn't she be able to help her manage the matters in the shop? Madame Dai was quite confident. Her milk tea shop was so novel. Madame Qiuyue would definitely like it. Gu Yundong nodded. "All right, well, come back tomorrow." Madame Dai heaved a sigh of relief. "I was thinking of calling all the workers and cooks in New Tea Pavilion over to meet her. You can also take the opportunity to see which people are not suitable and let them go back." Madame Dai was also very helpless. Who asked the people she liked to have problems? It was the same for the previous shopkeeper. Today, Xiao Yi had directly violated the taboo of New Tea Pavilion. Her ability to choose people was too trash. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Logically speaking, with Madame Dai's ability, she should not have done this. Otherwise, she would not be able to become the mistress of a family and manage the huge backyard of the Dai residence. She was the one who chose the servants in the Dai residence. Didn't the maidservants who served her know the rules and do things? However, she had suffered setbacks in the business world time and time again, causing her to lose her temper. This milk tea shop was currently the most popular. Madame Dai felt that Gu Yundong was a lucky star and she needed her to control the situation. Gu Yundong had no objections to seeing Madame Qiuyue tomorrow. The two of them discussed the shopkeeper for a long time. It was not until the shop was closed that Yunshu came to remind them of the time. Madame Dai immediately asked Yunshu to buy some food from a restaurant not far away. They would eat dinner in the shop so that they wouldn't go back too late. Besides, Gu Yundong wanted to show Yunshu and Yuanji the rooms at the back. Speaking of this, Madame Dai was proud. "Who asked you not to come when you opened for business back then? When this shop was just renovated, Nie Shuang and I liked it very much. Nie Shuang even said that she wouldn't go back. She would switch to a different room every day and stay here in the future. It's a good opportunity to look after the shop." Gu Yundong could not help but want to laugh. "Then why didn't you agree?" "Don't. The Nie family will settle scores with me later." As the two of them spoke, they led Yunshu and the others to visit the rooms one by one. The two children were overjoyed. Even eldest Aunt Gus' eyes were shining. After walking around, the sky was already a little dark. Only then did Gu Yundong bring Yunshu and Yuanji, who were still extremely excited, as well as eldest Aunt Gu, who seemed to have a certain goal in her eyes and was becoming more and more determined, back to the small courtyard. As soon as eldest Aunt Gu entered the house, she could not wait to return to her room. She said that she wanted to tidy up the wooden carvings. She could clearly feel how successful Gu Yundong was today. The business of the two shops was booming. If Yundong could make something out of nothing, so could she. Even if she couldn't compare to Yundong, as long as she worked hard, she could also have her own shop in the future. Her life would definitely get better and better. At this moment, Gu Dafeng's goal was exceptionally firm. The next day, Yunshu and Yuanji followed Gu Dajiang to Tianhai Academy and saw the stone wall engraved with names. As Gu Dajiang was leading them, the two of them even entered the academy. After seeing this academy that had 100 years of history, they were overwhelmed with emotions the entire day. Meanwhile, Gu Yundong brought Tong Shui Tao to the milk tea shop again. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 860, This Person is Good. Nie Shuang was also here. She was the first to arrive and was already eating in the hall. Madame Dai went to fetch Madame Qiuyue. As soon as they entered, everyone in New Tea Pavilion was present. It was Gu Yundong's first time seeing Madame Qiuyue. How should she put it? Madame Dai was right. Madame Qiuyue was good. When she pulled a long face, even Gu Yundong felt a little uneasy. Her hands and feet were placed very properly, and she did not dare to look around. It was exactly the same feeling as when she met the dean in elementary school in her previous life. It was simply sour and refreshing. If she was standing in the crowd like this, who would dare to quarrel in New Tea Pavilion? Who would dare? Anyway, Gu Yundong did not dare. However, she stopped pulling a long face and only smiled slightly. The expression on her face instantly became approachable and kind. Even the waiter of New Tea Pavilion dared to joke with her. Most importantly, Madame Qiuyue was multi-talented. She was proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She was omnipotent in brewing tea and making incense. Even if a noble old lady came, Madame Qiuyue could accompany her for most of the day and not bring any awkwardness. Stay. Such a person had to stay. However, Gu Yundong did not show too much enthusiasm. Madame Qiuyue was obviously very opinionated. If you were too enthusiastic, she would not be too happy. She introduced the situation of the milk tea shop as usual. Gu Yundong answered Madame Qiuyue's questions in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. After walking around, the two of them chatted the most. There were specializations in the industry. Madame Qiuyue did not know much about business, but she knew how to read people, teach people, read accounts, and get along with customers. It was enough. After Madame Qiuyue finished asking, she told them to consider it. Nie Shuang was a little disappointed, but Gu Yundong and Madame Dai's eyes lit up. When Madame Dai brought her back, she couldn't help but say, "My milk tea shop will definitely be good in the future, right? Then you're lucky to have met such a scheming little girl. Nanny, are you coming tomorrow?" Madame Qiuyue sat in the carriage and closed her eyes in silence for a while before saying with a smile, "Yes, it's good to work in another environment." Madame Dai became happy. After sending Madame Qiuyue back, she returned to the milk tea shop and announced such good news. Nie Shuang's eyes lit up. Although Gu Yundong was also happy, she looked much calmer than expected. However, before she left, she specially said to Su Qing, "Learn more from Madame Qiuyue in the future, especially when it comes to how she treats others. It will be good for you." From the looks of it, Madame Dai would definitely open a milk tea shop elsewhere in the future. Now that the prefecture magistrate Dai was being placed in an important position, he would probably be transferred back to the capital by the emperor in 2 years. Madame Dai might have already found a suitable shop in the capital. If Su Qing learned more, even if she didn't go to the capital in the future, she could still go to other county cities to be a master. Gu Yundong returned to the small courtyard and realized that eldest Aunt Gu was still in her room. She seemed to have been in the house for the entire day. Gu Yundong stood outside the window and looked, only to find that she was muttering to the wooden carvings. She did not know what she was thinking. Her uncle sat on a chair beside her and shushed her softly. On the third day, Gu Yundong had just woken up when Gu Dafeng carried her bag and prepared to leave. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment and quickly stopped her. "Aunt, where are you going? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 861, Let's Do It Today. Gu Dafeng looked at her bag in high spirits. "I'm going to the market to sell wooden carvings." "Now?" "Yes, I prepared for a day yesterday. I set a price for each wooden sculpture and memorized it. I'm prepared to do something big today." What she did not say was that she had rehearsed in her room for a long time yesterday. She had practiced how to receive guests, how to speak, and how to treat people who made things difficult for her. First of all, she had to smile. Gu Yundong had always been smiling when she treated the two quarreling madams that day. However, she could not be afraid and let others think that she was easy to bully. Gu Dafeng was a little regretful now. In the past, when Bien Han went to sell the wooden carvings, she did not go with him. Otherwise, she would not be so inexperienced. Gu Yundong did not expect her to be so well prepared. At this moment, if given a lever, she seemed to be able to prop up an entire planet. She smiled and stepped forward. "I'll go with eldest aunt." "No need, no need. How can I rely on you for everything? I'm already an adult and you're elder. I can't keep asking you to take care of me. I'll go myself." "It's fine. If I can't sell them today, I can continue tomorrow. I'll slowly figure it out. It won't always fail to sell." Gu Yundong really had a good impression of eldest Aunt Gu. She thought about Gu Qiuyue and then looked at eldest Aunt Gu. She knew that old Gu was a blind fool. He did not value his eldest son and daughter who were really promising. He only knew how to torture them and specially dote on those useless people. It would be strange if he had a good ending. Then he'll send eldest aunt over. "It's your first time going to the market, so you definitely don't know the way. By the time you find the place, it might be noon. There won't be any place for you to set up at the market." Gu Dafeng thought about it and agreed. "All right, then bring me there. But we've agreed that you'll go after that." "Of course. I'll come back after sending eldest aunt off. I guarantee that I won't even enter the market. I'll let eldest aunt do everything herself." Gu Dafeng smiled and followed her into the carriage. Tong Shuitao drove them there. Gu Yundong was a woman of her word. When they arrived outside the market, she put Gu Dafeng down and waved goodbye to her. Gu Dafeng entered the market, but Gu Yundong did not leave. She asked Tong Shuitao to watch the carriage and followed her. Yes, she was just curious about what eldest aunt would do. She was purely curious. Unbeknownst to Gu Dafeng, her tail had been behind her. When she reached the entrance of the market, she could not help but tighten her grip on her bag. After hesitating for a moment, she strode in. She remembered that Yundong had told her that the first seats in the market were the mother and daughter pair who sold flowers. The young lady's name was Xiao Yuan, and she was about 10 years old. Therefore, as soon as she entered, Gu Dafeng looked in that direction and indeed saw the stall with more than 20 bright potted plants in front of her. The person sitting behind the flowers with a small stool was a young lady. The young lady was watering the flowers with a kettle. She looked serious and obedient, just as Yundong had described. Gu Dafeng immediately became happy and walked up to them. The little girl looked up and immediately put on a smile. "Aunt, do you want to buy flowers?" Gu Dafeng shook her head and asked, "Is your name Xiao Yuan?" "Yes, Auntie knows me." Gu Dafeng's eyes lit up even more. Her happy expression made Xiao Yuan's mother, Madame Fan, who was arranging the flowers, immediately vigilant. She stood in front of Gu Dafeng and frowned. What's the matter? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 862, First Aunt's Voice. Gu Dafeng was stunned and became a little nervous. Did they see through her because she was from the countryside? Did the people in the prefectural city not like her? No, Yundong had said that Xiao Yuan and her daughter were very friendly. Hence, she hurriedly explained, don't misunderstand. My niece said that you sell flowers here, so I came over to ask if it's true. Mrs. Fan was suspicious. Your niece is, her surname is Gu. Do you still remember the girl who bought 20 pots of flowers for her mother last time? Xiao Yuan immediately stood up happily. I remember. Is Sister Gu your niece? Yes, I'm her aunt. Madame Fan was also a little happy. Others might not remember, but Gu Yundong and the rest remembered very clearly. She was the first customer to buy 20 pots of flowers in one go, and she even helped them chase away Shopkeeper Pan. Ever since Shopkeeper Pan left, they had been selling flowers here smoothly. Now that she heard that the other party was her aunt, she quickly greeted her warmly, so it's sister-in-law Gu. Are you here to buy something? What do you want to buy? I'll tell you where to go. No. I'm not buying anything. I'm here to sell something. Madame Fan was confused. Selling things? She could not help but look at the bag in her hand. Gu Dafeng coughed lightly and squatted down to open the bag. Those are wooden carvings made by my husband. I want to sell them here. The moment the bag was opened, Xiao Yuan exclaimed, they're so beautiful. Gu Dafeng took a small item and handed it to her. This is for you. Xiao Yuan quickly rejected her. No. Auntie, you're selling it. Take it. It's not difficult. I was originally going to give it to you. Gu Dafeng knew about Xiao Yuan and her daughter, so she had prepared one in advance. Bian Han had casually carved them, so they were not very complicated. They were very simple flowers. Then I can't take it either. How about this? Accept this wooden flower and tell me what to pay attention to when setting up a stall here. I don't understand anything. Teach me. Take this as a payment for my hard work. Xiao Yuan looked at her mother. She liked the flower very much. Madame Fan thought about it and nodded. Only then did Xiao Yuan thank Gu Dafeng and take the wooden flower. Then, Madame Fan told Gu Dafeng about the rules of setting up a stall in the market. The first thing she did was to pay 5 copper coins to rent a small stall. With a stall, she could buy and sell. There were also people who could not be offended. What time would the market close tonight and what time would the market open? Gu Dafeng listened carefully. Coincidentally, there was an empty space beside Xiao Yuan. Madame Fan took Gu Dafeng to rent a stall first, then she untied the bag beside her. At first, Gu Dafeng did not dare to make a sound. When she heard someone shouting beside her, she followed suit. Gu Dafeng used to be quite loud. Now that she opened her mouth, she suppressed the voices of the surrounding vendors. The surroundings instantly fell silent as everyone looked at her. Gu Dafeng did not notice. Just as Madame Fan was about to remind her, the vendors started to shout again, as if they wanted to suppress Gu Dafeng's voice. Madame Fan was speechless. Madame Fan and Xiao Yuan were both relatively shy people. Their voices were not loud, so their business was average. At this moment, because the surrounding vendors seemed to be competing, the noise in this area was especially loud, attracting many customers. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 863, Getting More Bold. Gu Yundong almost died of laughter when she saw this. Eldest aunt had pulled in this business with a good voice. A few people came to Gu Dafeng's stall to take a look. There was indeed someone who liked her small wooden carvings. There were even people who went to Xiao Yuan's shop to look at the flowers. In an instant, there were more people here. Gu Yundong felt that her eldest aunt was good at doing business. Her talent had been buried in the past. She stood outside and watched for a while. When she saw that there was no problem, she turned around and left. After getting back into the carriage, Tong Shuitao asked, "Miss, are we going back?" "Let's not go back for now. Let's go to Brother Xiao's medicine shop." "Yes." Xiao Qingyuan's pharmacy was almost done, and the person who renovated it was still Feng Danning. The decorations of new tea pavilion really advertised Feng Danning. The current Feng Danning could not leave at all to return to Yongfu village. Business came one after another and he could not handle it at all. However, when he heard that Xiao Qingyuan was going to renovate the place, he still came personally without a word. Feng Danning still remembered that it was Gu Yundong who had helped him a lot. From the Gu family's green brick house to the county's Gus, to the prefectural city's Gus, and then to the milk tea shop in the prefectural city, all these were brought to him by Gu Yundong. If she hadn't given him every chance, he would probably still be wandering around the village. Perhaps even the pitiful business in the county city would have been wiped out by his senior brother. Therefore, as long as the Gu family needed it, Feng Danning would definitely come to help without saying anything. As for the Xiao family, they belonged to the Gu family anyway. Feng Danning was tidying up the shop when Gu Yundong walked in. Gu Yundong greeted him. "Uncle Feng, you've worked hard. Where's Brother Xiao?" "He's in the backyard storeroom." Gu Yundong nodded and walked towards the storeroom. She did not notice Feng Danning's hesitant expression behind her. When she reached the backyard, she heard a voice from the storeroom. Xiao Qingyuan was looking at the herbs. The shop was about to open, so the herbs were naturally in place. Gu Yundong looked at his serious back view, tilted her head and smiled. "What are you laughing at?" Xiao Qingyuan didn't even turn around when he heard her footsteps and knew that she was here. He put down the herb in his hand, clapped his hands lightly, and walked out of the storeroom. "Why are you here?" Gu Yundong looked around and saw that there was no one around. Then, she whispered into his ear, "I missed you." Xiao Qingyuan's pupils constricted as he pulled her into the storeroom. Gu Yundong was stunned. The smell of traditional Chinese medicine filled his nose. Then, the door of the storeroom was closed. Xiao Qingyuan pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly. "Say that again." Gu Yundong smiled. "I missed you." Xiao Qingyuan lowered his head and accurately found her lips, covering them heavily. She buried her head in his arms. "You're getting bolder." From holding hands at the beginning, to hugging, and now, what a scheming fellow. He did not hesitate at all. "Next, when you're of marriageable age, let's get married," Xiao Qingyuan said. Gu Yundong thought to herself, as expected. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 864, Consummation Problem. Gu Yundong looked up and said with a smile, "My father can't bear to marry me off so early. Then I can marry into your family." Without any hesitation, Xiao Qingyuan answered quickly. Gu Yundong choked and could not help but laugh. "I'm still young. You'll be of marriageable age next month." "You're not young anymore." "I mean, I haven't grown up yet." Xiao Qingyuan froze for a moment. His hands that were holding her felt a little warm. Gu Yundong seemed to hear him swallow his saliva gently. After a while, he said in a slightly hoarse voice, "We can get married first and consummate our marriage later." Gu Yundong choked on her own saliva. She covered her mouth and coughed twice. "Consummate the marriage later? You look like you want to kiss, hug, and lift me up when no one is paying attention. Can you hold it in after getting married?" "It would be strange if I believed you." Xiao Qingyuan said, "Yundong, your father has your mother and your siblings. But I'm alone. Every night when I go home, the house is cold and cheerless. There's no one to talk to. Sometimes, I can't sleep, but I don't know what to do. It's not convenient to talk to you if I want to look for you. I just think that as long as I can see you every day, it's enough. Yundong looked up and met his gloomy gaze. She pursed her lips slightly. Oh no, he was using this trick again. What if her heart softened? Yundong opened her mouth. At this moment, a strong voice came from outside the door. Boss Xiao, where are you? Yundong could clearly feel that Qiuyue's arms were tense, and his aura instantly turned cold. Boss Xiao, have you settled the matter I told you? The voice was getting closer and closer. Yundong also recognized the voice. It was Dr. Xiong. She took a step back and left Qiuyue's arms. Then, the air around her turned even colder. She heard Qiuyue's low curse. This bear, he tidied Yundong's hair and said, "I'll go out and see him." Yeah. Qiuyue opened the door of the storeroom. Yundong turned around and vaguely heard him mutter before he left, it was this bear who agreed. Yundong, I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. Who was going to agree? Who? Come back here and explain yourself. Yundong stood rooted to the ground and stared. In the end, she did not chase after them. She tidied her clothes and stayed in the storeroom for a while. She pretended to look at the herbs before walking out slowly. In the courtyard, Qiuyue had already spoken to Dr. Xiong. However, Qiuyue's face was cold and he looked very unhappy. Although Dr. Xiong was tough and had a bad temper, that was based on his medical skills. He had confidence in this aspect and was very persistent in certain aspects. That was why he was so stubborn. Moreover, Qiuyue usually tolerated him and gave him enough freedom to perform. Therefore, Dr. Xiong had full authority over medical herbs. But now, this expression, Dr. Xiong said a few words to him, but he did not get a response. Especially since the other party's aura was cold, it really made him a little afraid. Could it be that the request he made just now was really too much? After all, what he said now was not related to medical skills. Dr. Xiong did not have much confidence. Just as he was wondering if he should leave, he looked up and saw Yundong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 865, Jiang Bao. Dr. Xiong immediately heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly ran to her. Miss Gu. Dr. Xiong, why are you looking for Brother Xiao? Yundong glanced sideways at Qiuyue, who was walking over. The latter looked helpless, but his face was no longer cold. Dr. Xiong turned around and saw that he seemed to have become a different person. His eyes widened. Heh, you actually have two faces. Your attitude towards me and towards Yundong is too different. Dr. Xiong's temper flared up again. He snorted coldly and simply said to Yundong, I want a guy, but he keeps dilly-dallying and disagreeing. He's a man, so can't he be more straightforward? Must I leave behind so many important things to remind him again and again? Yundong was curious. What guy? He's a very smart shop assistant. His words are especially to my liking, and he recognizes medicinal herbs very quickly. Yundong looked at Qiuyue, who said, Jiang Bao. Jiang, wasn't this Qiuyue's assistant from the county medicine shop? Qiuyue nodded. That's him. I didn't say that I wouldn't let him come over. Dr. Xiong was furious. But you said that you would only allow him to come next year. How can that do? The shop is about to open. Besides, there's no difference between a few months late and a few months early. He's getting married next year. Dr. Xiong snorted coldly. Is getting married as important as being a worker in the prefectural city? The sooner he comes, the sooner he can become successful in the future. Do you know how important a few more months of studying here is to his life? So what if he gets married? Marriage is only 2 to 3 days. Can't we just let him go back on a good day? Yundong could tell that he was a career maniac. Xiao Qingyuan could not convince Dr. Xiong, so he told Gu Yundong directly, there are many things to prepare before marriage. The procedures are complicated. 2 or 3 days will definitely not be enough. If he comes to the prefectural city, it will be a long journey. I'm afraid it will be inconvenient. His parents and brothers have to settle down first. After he gets married next year, Zhuangzi will also come to the prefectural city. Jiang Bao said that they can come together. Gu Yundong felt that this arrangement was quite good. Although work was important, marriage was even more important. Since the two families were engaged, they had to visit each other often to discuss the details. It couldn't be that Jiang Bao had come to the prefectural city alone, and his parents were the only ones in their family to do everything, right? Then in the future, when Lan Hua married over, wouldn't people gossip about her and say that she was in a hurry? She might not be valued in her husband's family. Moreover, from what Xiao Qingyuan said, Jiang Bao agreed to come over after they got married. However, it had to be said that there were indeed people fighting for this talent everywhere. She used to think that Jiang Bao was smart. The first time they met, she had a deep impression of him. Now, Dr. Xiong had taken a fancy to him. Then will Lan Hua also come to the prefectural city? Gu Yundong had plans to send Lan Hua to New Tea Pavilion again. 1 Su Qing was still too few. Xiao Qingyuan didn't know about this. We'll have to wait for them to get married and decide for themselves. Nowadays, when husbands went out to earn money, wives had to stay at home to take care of their parents. However, if Jiang Bao and Lan Hua got married, he might still want to bring her out. As long as Jiang Bao was willing, he would definitely be able to convince his family. Since that was the case, Gu Yundong would not interfere. She would wait for them to make their own decisions. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 866, Want Both. Dr. Xiong, who was standing at the side, was about to die of anger. How did they manage to talk about love with a living person in front of them as if he did not exist? Do you really have to wait until after the new year for Jiang Bao to come over? His voice was sharp and noisy for a moment. Finally, Xiao Qingyuan turned around to look at him. Seeing that he was a little flustered and exasperated, he said, there are 2 choices. Firstly, I bring Jiang Bao over. From now on, he will be the only assistant in this pharmacy. Secondly, Jiang Bao will come back in a few months. There can be 2 assistants in the pharmacy, Jiang Bao and Zhou. Dr. Xiong was instantly suffocated. He wanted Jiang Bao and Zhou. Couldn't he choose both? However, looking at Xiao Qingyuan's implacable appearance, Dr. Xiong ran away. Gu Yundong stared dumbfoundedly at his back as he ran away. After a long while, he finally could not help but laugh out loud. I didn't expect him to be so agile. Ha ha ha, he ran so quickly. Xiao Qingyuan was also very helpless. This Dr. Xiong was really, Gu Yundong had enough of laughing before he remembered what he had just said. You let Zhou stay in the pharmacy as a shop assistant? Didn't you say that the 4 of them would learn martial arts and be guards in the future? Xiao Qingyuan said, Zhou recognized that medicinal herb in the manor last time. When I returned, I tested him and found that he was very interested in this aspect and was talented, so I asked for his opinion. He wants to be a shop assistant in this shop and learn more skills. This was his own choice, and Xiao Qingyuan wouldn't object. In any case, as long as Zhou didn't fall behind in martial arts, it was fine. Gu Yundong was enlightened. No wonder Xiao Qingyuan did not plan to hire a shop assistant when he arrived at the prefectural city. He already had someone in mind. Since the prefectural city's shop has a candidate, if you want Jiang Bao and Zhou to work here, what about the pharmacy in the county? Just find another one in the county city. The shop there is small and business is average. It's enough for the shopkeeper to prescribe medicine and pick the herbs. Just find a hard-working person to help move things and clean the shop. They don't have to know about medicinal herbs. The doctor in the county's pharmacy was different from Dr. Xiong. Dr. Xiong's medical skills were good, so after arriving at the prefectural city, he looked for medical centers everywhere to compare medical skills with others. When the medicine shop opened, although he would not be like this, he would have to run out a few days a month. Therefore, Jiang Bao and Zhou, who needed to know about medicinal herbs, should be in the pharmacy. The old doctor in the county city liked to stay in his room and not go out. When a patient came, he would treat them and prescribe medicine. If there was none, he would read the medical book himself or organize the herbs. He could stay indoors for an entire day. He would find another assistant later. The old doctor also had the patience to teach him some simple pharmacology. This was what Jiang Bao learned step by step. But when it came to Jiang Bao and Lan Hua's marriage, Qiuyue could not help but look at Gu Yundong again. Now that Dr. Xiong had left, could the topic be? Just as Qiuyue was thinking, footsteps came from behind. He closed his eyes silently. Why was it so hard to talk to her alone? Next time, he might as well take her out somewhere private. Yundong. Gu Yundong turned around and saw Feng Danning walking over. She smiled. Uncle Feng, are you done with your work? Basically. Feng Danning walked towards them. This time, Gu Yundong could tell that Uncle Feng had something to say. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 867, Almighty Feng's Concerns. What's wrong, Uncle Feng? Why are you looking for me? Feng Danning smiled uncomfortably. Actually, it's nothing much. I just heard that. He glanced at Gu Yundong. Seeing her confused look, he could not help but lower his voice. I heard that you found your aunt and uncle? Yes, I did. Feng Danning touched his head. Well, congratulations. Thank you, Uncle Feng. Gu Yundong smiled. From the corner of his eye, he saw two people standing behind a wall not far away. He kept winking at Feng Danning. When Feng Danning saw this, he opened his mouth but did not know what to say. In the end, he simply said, then there's nothing else. I'll leave first. When the two people behind heard this, they immediately became anxious. Gu Yundong could not help but say, Uncle Feng, you have something to tell me, right? It's fine. Tell me. We're all from Yongfu village. There's nothing to mind. Feng Danning thought for a moment, gritted his teeth, and said, I heard that your uncle also does carpentry. I just want to ask, if you open a shop again in the future, would your uncle help you? Gu Yundong was stunned. She did not expect him to be talking about this. However, it was obvious that Feng Danning was not asking for himself, but for the two carpenters. Was he worried that she had a closer candidate and would not need them in the future? Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. She teased, Uncle Feng, you're now a popular person in the prefectural city. Why? Are you still afraid that you won't have work to do? What are you talking about? What do you mean by not being popular? Didn't you help me get to where I am today? Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to walk out of the village. Gu Yundong could understand his worry, but she felt that it was completely unnecessary. Uncle Feng, although my uncle is also a carpenter, he's different from you. His work is more exquisite and there's no conflict. Besides, Uncle Feng, you have a group of people under you now. Your team has already matured. What are you worried about? Feng Danning sighed. Yundong, I'm not afraid that you'll laugh at me. I just feel that you don't need us anymore in the future. I suddenly feel a little flustered. Ha ha ha, then, I'm fine. I'll go to work. Gu Yundong nodded, and Feng Danning quickly ran away. The two people hiding behind the wall immediately pulled him over, and the three of them muttered to each other. Gu Yundong looked at their backs thoughtfully. Why do I feel like all of them are too dependent on me? Could it be that she was too opinionated? Qiuyue had wanted to say something a few times, but he was interrupted. He no longer had a temper. However, when he turned his head and saw her frowning as if she was very troubled, he felt that she was cute. He couldn't help but hold her hand. You're very charming. Hence, he would always become someone else's backbone. Not to mention Feng Danning, even the village chief of Yongfu village, Chen Liang, could not help but come to the Gu family to discuss with her when something big happened. His Yundong would become the center of attention wherever he went, making people involuntarily approach him. At this moment, Xiao Qingyuan actually felt an inexplicable sense of pride. Gu Yundong sniggered. Seeing him say such things so seriously, she actually felt a little amused. All right. I'm charming. Doesn't that mean you're even more charming now that you're my fiancé? Xiao Qingyuan suddenly turned around, and his eyes became restless again. He felt that the atmosphere that had disappeared just now had returned. Seeing this, Gu Yundong quickly pulled her hand away and ran away. I'm going to Aunt K's house. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 868, Arrangements for Aunt Ku. Gu Yundong ran out of the door and soon disappeared. Today, Yunshu and Yuanji had both gone to Aunt K's house. She planned to pick them up. When they arrived at the Ku residence, they saw Aunt Ku happily preparing delicious food for them. Aunt Ku had always been good to children, let alone Yunshu, Yunka, Yuanji, and Madame Yang. But when she saw Gu Yundong, she raised her face again, making Gu Yundong not know whether to laugh or cry. There were still some changes in Aunt K's house. There were a few pots of flowers in the corner of the courtyard, which seemed to be given to her by Madame Yang. There were some things for children to play with in the central room, as well as paper, ink, brush, and inkstone. Gu Yundong was silent. It was too lonely for Aunt Ku to live alone, but she refused to retire with him. Her temper was really stubborn. If Gu Yundong talked to her, she would lose her temper. Retirement? Gu Yundong suddenly thought of something. She went up to Aunt Ku and said, Aunt, have you ever thought about working at New Tea Pavilion? You don't have to do anything. Just help out a little. If you want to rest, rest. If you want to work, work. If you're tired, go to our room to sleep. If you're bored, you can chat with someone. As for the salary, I'll give you a little bit. How about that? Aunt K's hand paused for a moment. That slight movement stunned Gu Yundong. It seemed that Aunt Ku had thought about it. In that case, she had neglected him. Gu Yundong was instantly vexed. However, Aunt Ku snorted and said, Why would I go? There are so many people. With my temper, I will offend the guests. Gu Yundong smiled and held her hand. No. Although Aunt Ku is always fierce to me, you're much more patient with children. You also know how to tell stories. Look, Kiki, Yunshu, Yuanji, and the rest like you. Our new tea pavilion also has small guests. You can take care of them, right? Aunt Ku used to be very good at talking. She remembered that when Nyatsong first saw her, he had reminded her that the children around her were afraid of Aunt Ku because once she pulled them over, she would talk endlessly. However, after spending a year with Yunshu and the rest, Aunt Ku would no longer have such a situation because Yunshu was more eloquent than her. Sometimes, when Aunt Ku told a story, when Yunshu heard something he liked, he would tell her a bunch of random things. Aunt Ku had no room to interrupt. Moreover, this new tea pavilion was opened by her, Nie Shuang, and Madame Dai. Nie Shuang did not say anything else. Aunt Ku was her biological aunt and they had a good relationship. Madame Dai also knew Aunt Ku and the two of them were friends. As for Madame Qiuyue, who had just been hired today, Gu Yundong felt that she and Aunt Ku were probably the same kind of people. They were both smart people who could understand each other without saying much. Perhaps the two of them could even become friends. Actually, Gu Yundong had thought about letting Aunt Ku be the shopkeeper. Unfortunately, she had been rejected by Aunt Ku from the start. She did not want to take on such a responsibility at all and did not have the time. Therefore, Gu Yundong never mentioned letting Aunt Ku go to New Tea Pavilion again. However, she did not expect that Aunt Ku did not want to be the shopkeeper, and yet she was not against doing things at New Tea Pavilion, where she could interact with so many children. As expected, when Aunt Ku heard the last sentence, she could not hold back her expression and smiled. All right, since you're so sincere, there's no harm in me forcing myself to go. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 869, Gu Yundong's Proposal. Gu Yundong could not help but secretly roll her eyes. You even learned how to speak like me? But Gu Yundong was still very happy that Aunt Ku agreed. However, there was one thing that needed to be mentioned. Don't be too tired. There's no harm in going over later in the morning. There aren't many customers at the beginning anyway. You have to come back early at night. There's no need to wait until after closing. Although your place isn't very far from New Tea Pavilion, it's not too late. I'll be worried. All right, I understand. Aunt Ku pushed her away. Don't be sticky. Hurry up and ask your mother and the children to wash their hands. It's time to eat. Gu Yundong smiled and went out. After the few of them finished their lunch, she brought them home. Only Bian Han and the Lu family were left at home. Gu Dajiang had brought Yunshu and Yuanji back to Tianhai Academy yesterday and happened to meet Master Xia. Today, Master Xia had called him to the academy to help copy books, so he was not around. Bian Han sat by the window and was carving with a piece of wood in his hand. He was very focused. Hearing the voice at the door, he looked up and welcomed his son who ran in. He asked him what had happened when he went out today. Bian Yuanji had told him in detail that ever since he reunited with his parents, he had become especially coquettish and cheerful. Gu Yundong looked at Bian Han and thought of what Feng Danning had said today. Eldest uncle was indeed more focused on the exquisite work of carving. He could also do some tables and stools. However, he was not used to following the construction team and renovating the shop. Gu Yundong did not think that it was a big deal. It was already very impressive if one's certain skills were superb. He did not have to worry about food and clothes. In the past, when she was in her hometown, there were not many people who hired her uncle to work, so his skills did not improve much. But in recent days, Gu Yundong had seen the wooden carvings and found that they were much more exquisite and complicated. After some thought, Gu Yundong walked to the window. Seeing her coming over, Bian Han looked up and smiled. Yundong, are you looking for me? Yes. Gu Yundong looked at the few small things he had carved today and said, Uncle, have you ever thought of making a set of wooden carvings? A set of wooden carvings? Bian Han did not seem to understand. Gu Yundong said, for example, you can sculpt 12 zodiac signs, calligraphy, and any objects. Then, you can mark these wooden carvings to show that you sculpted them. Some people will have obsessive-compulsive disorder. They might buy other zodiac signs because they like one of them. Some people like to collect such sets. Do you think this is okay? Yuanzi's eyes lit up when he heard that. That's right. You can even sculpt plums, orchids, bamboos, and chrysanthemums. Scholars will definitely like it. The more Bian Han listened, the more excited he became. That's right, why didn't he think of it? In the past, he always carved anything he thought of. Now that she heard Yundong's words, she suddenly felt enlightened. You're right. I'll start carving the 12 zodiacs now. Yuanji was in a hurry. Father, I'll help you write. Gu Yundong saw that the father and son were immediately busy. She smiled and left. Bian Han and Yuanji were so busy that they forgot the time. They only realized it when the sky gradually darkened. Eldest Aunt Gu was not back yet. Bian Han immediately became anxious. Yuanji, go out and take a look. Why isn't your mother back yet? Yuanji put down his brush and was about to leave when the door to the courtyard opened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 870, Making Money, Making Money. Bien Yuanji looked up and saw his mother walking in with a flushed face. She was carrying a bag in her left hand and a basket in her right. No one knew what was inside. His face lit up and he quickly ran over. "Mother, you're finally back." Gu Dafeng's smile widened. She patted her son's head forcefully and said to Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong, who had also walked out, "Brother, Yundong, here. This is meat. Cook this for dinner." Gu Dajiang stopped in his tracks and frowned slightly. "What happened to your throat?" Gu Dafeng coughed lightly. Her throat was indeed very uncomfortable, and her voice was hoarse. Gu Yundong had already guessed it. She must have shouted so hard that her throat was damaged. Sigh, she should have known. She had forgotten to remind her. Unexpectedly, Eldest aunt was so honest that she insisted on shouting until she could not. "My throat is fine. I'll just drink more hot water." Gu Dafeng waved her hand indifferently. She was full of energy now. What was a throat? She didn't even know. Gu Yundong walked forward and took the basket from Gu Dafeng's hand. She removed the cloth covering it and realized that other than a piece of meat, there was also a pot of flowers. It must have been given to her by Xiao Yuan and her daughter. "This meat should weigh 2 catties, right? Aunt, is your business good today?" Gu Dafeng chuckled. Seeing that Bien Han had already been carried out by Lu Sheng, she mysteriously walked to the central room and took off the bag on her back. "Let me tell you, my business is especially good today. I've sold more than half of the wooden carvings." As she spoke, she opened the bag and everybody saw that there were only a few wooden carvings left inside. They looked quite small. Immediately after, Gu Dafeng searched around her body and took out a cloth bag. Then, she opened the cloth bag and took out a money bag. The money bag was quite heavy. With a light knock, it clanged. One could tell that it was filled with copper coins. Gu Dafeng opened the cloth bag excitedly and poured out the copper coins inside. With a clatter, copper coins covered most of the table. A few children at the side exclaimed, "Wow, so much money." Gu Dafeng said proudly, "I earned 700 copper coins today. There are so many people in the prefectural city. When I sat in the market and shouted, many people came over. Moreover, they're all quite rich. Other than a few people who bargained a few times, the others bought what they liked." She looked very emotional. "It's just that the vendors beside us are working too hard. Their voices are really loud. It's not easy for everyone to live." Gu Yundong was speechless. "Eldest aunt, don't do this tomorrow." Someone would say that she treated the flower and bird market as a vegetable market. However, the others agreed with Gu Dafeng. The children had already started counting the copper coins. Only Gu Dajiang frowned. "They're loud, but you're shouting too. Then you don't have to use so much strength, right? If you're like this, you won't even be able to speak tomorrow. How can you sell wooden carvings?" Gu Yundong laughed dryly. "Father, you're wrong. It's not that eldest aunt is following others to shout, but that others are following her. This is all caused by eldest aunt." Gu Dafeng felt as if she had been struck by lightning after hearing Gu Dajiang's words. That's right, she was too excited just now and forgot about this. If her throat was damaged, how was she going to do business tomorrow? Chapter 871, Miscalculation. At the thought of this, Gu Dafeng could not help but slap her thigh hard. I miscalculated. Wasn't this the first time she had earned so much money? Wasn't she too happy? In the past, when she was in Jiangyu County, it was her man who sold wooden carvings. He would often bring wooden carvings with a bag to the county city. When he came back, he would bring them back with a bag. He didn't have much money. There were too few people in Jiangyu County who bought the wooden carvings, so this was the first time Gu Dafeng was doing business personally. She was also nervous and thought that it would be good enough if she could sell a few. She did not expect there to be so many rich people in the prefecture capital. She would be more excited if she sold one, and her voice would be higher. After so many times, wouldn't she be unable to care about anything else? Gu Dajiang shook his head and asked Auntie Miao, do we have rock sugar chrysanthemum tea at home? Yes, my lord. Make her a cup. Gu Dafeng touched her throat with her fingers and finally felt a little uncomfortable. Bien Han said worriedly, rest at home tomorrow. Get your throat better first. How can I do that? It's not easy for me to get a good start today. Of course, I have to strike while the iron is hot tomorrow. But, Gu Dafeng glared at him. You can't speak when your throat hurts, but you don't allow me to gesture with my hands? Bien Han said helplessly, even if you want to sell, there aren't many wooden carvings left at home. You've sold most of them today. The wooden carvings that Gu Dafeng had sold today were all secretly made by him in the Zhou mansion. There were not many of them. For the past few days, because of his poor health, Gu Dajiang had forbidden him from overworking. When he was free, he would sunbathe, sleep, and eat. He had very limited time to carve every day. Therefore, there were not many wooden carvings. Gu Dafeng was stunned when she heard that. That made sense. Sigh, he couldn't make as fast as she could sell. It was really worrying. At this moment, the children finally finished counting the money. All of them looked very excited. 650 copper coins. Mother, we're missing 50 copper coins. Bien Yuanji raised his hand and reported the situation. Gu Dafeng slapped his hand away. Didn't I use it to buy meat? Why is it missing? Ah, right, I forgot. He rubbed his head and quickly became happy again. Mother, you're amazing. You actually earned so much money. Of course. Gu Dafeng was smug. Gu Yundong also said, I knew it. Eldest aunt is indeed good at doing business. Look at these copper coins. It takes a few people half a day to count them. Although the current 700 copper coins was nothing to Gu Yundong, it was different for eldest aunt Gu. In the past, she wished that 1 copper coin could be converted into 2 copper coins to spend. Her living expenses were only 2 to 3 taels a year. Now, it had only been a day, but she had already earned a quarter's living expenses. How could she not be happy? This meant a lot in itself. As expected, Gu Dafeng became even more excited when she heard Gu Yundong say that. She nodded repeatedly. I'm just like you. Gu Dajiang was speechless. That was the opposite. It should be that the niece resembled the aunt. However, he still expressed his approval and happily praised eldest sister's achievements today. After he finished speaking, the others immediately praised her. Gu Dafeng felt a little smug. She almost thought that she was about to become the richest man. That night, Gu Dafeng felt satisfied as she ate the 2 pounds of fat she had bought. Chapter 872, Reluctant to Spend the Silver. But at night, eldest aunt Gu still knocked on Gu Yundong's door. Gu Yundong opened the door and was stunned to see her. She quickly invited her in. Aunt, are you looking for me? Gu Dafeng nodded with a serious expression. Gu Yundong closed the door. Seeing her expression, she could not help but ask, what's wrong? Did you encounter trouble at the market today? There's no trouble. The market is pretty good. It's very lively. Gu Dafeng's voice was still very hoarse, and it even seemed to have become more serious. Her voice was so soft that it sounded like she was breathing. Gu Yundong silently looked up at the sky. Lively? It should be a competition of voices. Gu Dafeng lowered her head and took out a bag of things. Gu Yundong looked over. Wasn't this the money bag from before? Gu Dafeng looked at the money bag and smiled in satisfaction. Then, she placed it on the table and said, this is for you. For me? For what? Gu Yundong was confused. Gu Dafeng glanced at her from the corner of her eye. You fed us, clothed us, and provided for our accommodation. You even provided for Yuanzi's studies. Later, you still have to treat your uncle's legs. We can't accept it for nothing, right? I know that you're in charge of the family's money, so I won't give it to your father. You can keep these. Although it's not much, I'll work harder to earn money in the future. Gu Yundong understood that his eldest aunt could not enjoy everything here with a clear conscience. She was a person who could distinguish between gratitude and grudges. This could be seen from the first thing she did after she recovered. She was in a hurry to go to the market to sell wooden carvings. Gu Yundong also knew that they had a good relationship with eldest aunt, and eldest aunt and father had relied on each other since they were young. However, at the end of the day, they were already two families. They could help eldest aunt overcome her difficulties, but they could not help them for the rest of their lives. Thus, Gu Yundong did not stop eldest uncle from continuing to carve. He did not stop eldest aunt from going to the market to sell wooden carvings. Sooner or later, they would have to live on their own. But not now. Gu Yundong picked up the money bag and placed it back in Gu Dafeng's arms. Eldest aunt, I know what you're thinking. But you should take this money back yourself. If you give this money to me now, where will you get the capital to do business? Gu Dafeng blinked. The capital to do business? The carvings were made of wood. Previously, in the Zhou mansion, Mrs. Ren had brought it over for them. Back in his hometown, it was Bien Han who went straight to the mountain to cut the tree down. A very thick tree could be used for a long time. However, this prefectural city seemed to disallow people to cut trees at will. Gu Dafeng did not expect this. Furthermore, eldest aunt, eldest uncle's skills are getting better and better. In the future, he can even make more complicated wooden carvings that have a better meaning and sell them to those rich families. Such wooden carvings also have a lot of requirements for wood. When the time comes, will you also need silver to buy good wood? Gu Dafeng thought about it and agreed. Then I'll take this money back first. Yes, you should take it back. Gu Yundong nodded with certainty. When eldest aunt earns a lot of money in the future, I won't hide even if you throw silver at me. Pfft. What nonsense are you talking about? I can't bear to throw money at you. Gu Yundong asked, eldest aunt, are you reluctant to part with me, or are you reluctant to part with the silver? Of course I can't bear to part with the money. Look at how thick-skinned you are. What's the use of throwing it at you? Eldest aunt Gu was a straightforward person. Since Gu Yundong had said so, she did not insist on giving it to him. She immediately took the money bag and stood up. All right, I won't give it to you first. I'll buy a few caddies of meat later. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 873, Wheelchair. Gu Yundong thought of the fat meat tonight and felt her stomach ache. She said weakly, Aunt, can we buy lean meat next time? You fool. There's no oil on the lean meat, and it's a few copper coins more expensive than fat. Of course, the fat is better. It's very fragrant. No, she refused. Gu Dafeng had already left with the money bag. She looked like she was going to sell the wooden carvings another day and buy 2 pounds of fat. Gu Yundong suddenly regretted not taking her money bag. The next day, Gu Dafeng did not go to the market. Firstly, there were not many wooden carvings left. Secondly, she was completely speechless. Thirdly, Yunshu and Yuanji would be returning to Fengkai County tomorrow. The holidays were almost over, and the two of them had to return to school to study. Therefore, on this day, the two of them did not go out to play. They stayed at home to accompany their parents and family to rest. Yuanji couldn't bear to leave them. He stayed by their side for almost the entire day. Gu Dafeng could not speak, so he simply read to her. When Yunshu heard this, he could not help but read as well. The courtyard was filled with their childish voices. Gu Dafeng could not help but smile as she watched. It was great. She had never thought that her son could still study. He was so small, holding a book and shaking his head. Those words that seemed unreachable to her were jumping out of his mouth one by one. Even though she could not understand them, they were really nice. The sun was warm and comfortable. After noon, Xiao Qingyuan and Dr. Xiong arrived. Not only did they come, but they also brought something surprising, a wheelchair. The wheelchair was a little heavy, but in everyone's eyes, it was a precious and powerful thing. Xiao Qingyuan and Lu Xing carefully placed Bian Han on the wheelchair. Gu Dafeng stood behind him, her eyes shining. Her hands were wet with sweat, and she carefully pushed him a few steps. The wheels rolled on the stone road and landed in Bian Han's ears, almost making him cry tears of joy. Ever since his legs were broken, he had not left the Zhou mansion for more than a year. Gu Dafeng was thin and weak, so she could not carry him at all. In order not to add to her burden, Bian Han had to lie on the bed and solve almost everything. Then, they came to the small courtyard. When he went out and entered, he was carried around. Every time, Bian Han would feel very embarrassed. He felt that he had brought a lot of trouble to others. Now that he had this wooden wheelchair, he no longer needed to be carried by others. He was very excited, and his fingers trembled slightly. After Gu Dafeng pushed him around twice, he turned to her and said, "Independent Illinois, try it myself. Then be careful." "Yes, I'm fine." Bian Han exhaled. He wiped his hands on his clothes and held the wheels on both sides. The wheels were made of wood and were very heavy. It took a lot of effort to push the wheelchair forward. Bian Han sat on it and couldn't exert any strength. However, he did not give up. It was not until he was covered in sweat that the wheelchair finally moved forward. Once the wheelchair started walking, due to inertia, it was much easier to push again. Gu Dafeng exclaimed, "That's great." Bian Han turned his head. He was sweating profusely, but the smile on his face was especially satisfied. Then, Dr. Xiong checked his pulse and said that he had recuperated well during this period of time. In a few days, he would be able to treat his legs. The whole family was very happy, but this happiness lasted until night time. There was only sadness left. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 874, Farewell. Gu Dafeng could not bear to part with Yuanji, especially when she saw him sleeping in a small ball between the two of them. His hands were relying on them and he refused to let go. His face was red and he was smiling. She wanted to accompany him back to Yongfu village. They had just met not long ago, so how could they bear to part? They wished they could be together all the time. That wouldn't do. Yuanzi's studies were more important, and the father had to treat his legs here. She also had to sell wooden carvings to earn money. She couldn't leave. There were many customers in the prefectural city, so there was no need to worry about sales. There was probably no business in the county city. On the other hand, Bian Han looked at her and then at his son. After a long time, he said, "Why don't you accompany Yuanji back to Yongfu village?" Gu Dafeng was surprised. "You, too, visit Mulan." Bian Mulan's grave was now in Yongfu village. Speaking of their daughter, the two of them fell silent again. Their hearts ached. Their young daughter was only 20 years old and had never enjoyed happiness in her life. Why did she? Gu Dafeng's eyes were filled with tears again, and her nose was blocked. She reached out and wiped her eyes fiercely. In a hoarse voice, she said, "All right, I'll go back. I'll go see her and tell her that we're all fine. Tell her not to worry. Leave in peace. In our next life, she'll still be our daughter. Well, dote on her." Bian Han also said in a muffled voice, "I'll treat your leg when you come back. Then remember to eat well. That wheelchair is too heavy. Don't force yourself. Don't fall and hurt yourself again. You have to treat your legs as soon as possible and go back to Yongfu village to see Mulan. Take care of yourself too. Don't take care of Yuanji." Okay. Even though they had only been apart for a few days, the two of them still talked for a long time. The next day, Yuanji realized that when his mother was packing for him, she had also packed her own things. They would only be back for a few days. There was no need to bring too many things. Gu Dafeng, on the other hand, brought a few wooden carvings with her, intending to burn them for Bian Mulan. The carriage was already waiting at the entrance of the courtyard early in the morning. This time, Xiao Qingyuan would personally bring Yunshu and Yuanji back. He also had to return to the county city. Firstly, he wanted to ask Qin Wenjing about the Tao family situation, and secondly, he wanted to go back and collect herbs. After Xiao Qingyuan opened the pharmacy, he contacted a few herb farmers to buy some of the herbs in their hands. Everyone was happy to sell them to him for a fair price. The Gu family was very relieved to leave Yunshu and Yuanji to him. However, she did not expect Gu Dafeng to say that she wanted to go back. After hearing her reason, Gu Yundong nodded slightly. All right. Yuanji knows my cousin's location, but the mountain path is difficult to walk on. I'll get brother Xiao to send you there. Xiao Qingyuan nodded. Don't worry. Leave eldest aunt to me. Bian Han also wanted to go back, but his legs were not suitable for long journeys. If the carriage was too bumpy, his legs, which he had painstakingly recovered, would probably become even worse. Dr. Xiong suggested that he stay at home for the next few days and massage his thighs more. At this moment, he was sitting in a wheelchair as Gu Dajiang pushed him to the door. He watched as his wife and children got into the carriage and slowly left for the alley. After a while, when the carriage had completely disappeared, Gu Yundong said, "Let's go back to the house. It's cold outside. Don't catch a cold." Bian Han reluctantly retracted his gaze and the group entered the house. No one saw that Gu Yundong, whose back was facing them, had a scorching light in her eyes. With Yunshu and the others gone, it was time to settle some scores. For example, concubine Gu of the Zhou mansion. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 875, Settling the Scores. After sending Xiao Qingyuan's carriage off, Gu Yundong asked Tong Shui Tao to set up a carriage after lunch and told Gu Dajiang that he wanted to take a look at the shop. But when the carriage turned out of the alley, Gu Yundong suddenly instructed Tong Shui Tao, "Go to the Zhou residence." All right. Tong Shui Tao paused for a moment, then immediately understood what young Miss wanted to do. After all, she had been with young Miss for so long. Tong Shui Tao had been waiting for a few days, hoping that Miss would teach Gu Qiuyue a lesson. This person was really heartless. She had done all kinds of bad things and did not show any mercy to her own family. She deserved retribution. However, Miss didn't make a move. Tong Shuitao thought that Miss had given up. So she was planning to wait for young master and the others to leave before taking action. She sped up the carriage. "Miss, are we going to the Zhou mansion to tell old Master Zhou directly?" "No." "Why?" "Mr. Zhou is afraid of you. If he knows that concubine Gu is your enemy, he will definitely want to teach her a lesson, just like the young master of the Peng family in the county. He will do you a favor." Gu Yundong leaned against the carriage window and could not help but laugh. Give her face? How was Peng Zhongfei giving her face? He was giving face to the non-existent god that she had mentioned. Besides, Peng Zhongfei had been set up by Gu Xiener and hated her. Madame Yao and concubine Xia had secretly tried to sow discord, so Gu Xiener had no chance to make a comeback. However, Zhou Dafu was different. He liked Gu Qiuyue. Gu Yundong did not know what was wrong with his taste. Anyway, from the fact that he had yet to give up on her, it could be seen that Zhou Dafu liked Gu Qiuyue. Speaking of which, why did the descendants of old Gu and Madame Zhao like to be concubines so much? Could this be genetic inheritance? From the looks of it, uncle's genes had mutated. Zhou Dafu is afraid of me, but he also hates me. If he finds out about my relationship with Gu Qiuyue, he might make a big fuss out of it. We might even help Gu Qiuyue and let the two of them deal with me together. When Tong Shuitao heard this, it seemed to make sense. Then what should we do? Capture Gu Qiuyue and cripple her? Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Peach, we're civilized people. Don't fight and kill for no reason. You're only in front of me. If you say this outside, others might think that I'm cruel. Could it be that this was not the truth? The carriage will stop at the tea house diagonally opposite the Zhou residence. Go and find out if Zhou Dafu is at home. I'll wait for you at the tea house. As soon as she finished speaking, Tong Shuitao, who was outside, suddenly pulled the reins. Phew, Gu Yundong looked out of the window. It was not there. Miss, Tong Shuitao said, I don't need to ask around. Zhou Dafu is there. Gu Yundong changed the window and looked out. Indeed, she saw Zhou Dafu and Steward Zhou standing not far away outside the back door of a family mansion, arguing with the gatekeeper. Gu Yundong looked up. Oh, isn't this the Dai residence? She frowned slightly and said to Tong Shuitao, drive the carriage forward and see what they're talking about. Don't be discovered. Yes, my lady. Tong Shuitao pretended to walk forward as if nothing had happened. When she reached the corner, she stopped. Gu Yundong got down from the carriage and squinted at Zhou Dafu, who was not far away. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 876, Dafu Zhou tricked Dai Wenhuo. Zhou Dafu was pacing back and forth outside with a frown, looking very frustrated. Steward Zhou kept a smile on his face as he said to the gatekeeper, Little brother, help me. Our master really knows your young master. If you inform him, your young master will definitely remember. As he spoke, he stuffed a silver ingot into his hand. The gatekeeper hurriedly retracted his hand and said impatiently, Go, go, go. Are you bluffing me? If you really know him, you can just ask your master to write an invitation for our young master and enter through the main door. Do you have to make things difficult for me here? All right, leave quickly. Don't waste my time here. Let's go. As the gatekeeper spoke, he pushed Steward Zhou out. Hey, why are you still doing it? Let me tell you, I'm really not lying to you. Why don't you go and look for Bien Han? He's the servant your young master bought a few days ago. He knows our old master. Steward Zhou could only take a step back and mention Bien Han's name, although he felt that it was not very useful. Steward Zhou was also worried. Of course, his master had sent a post, but every time he received a response, it was that young Master Dai was very busy. Young Master Dai was not around, and young Master Dai did not know him. The gatekeeper in front of them already knew them, so they could only come here to try their luck. In any case, Zhou Dafu felt that the servants had not told young Master Dai about him at all. Otherwise, why would young Master Dai not see him? It did not make sense. However, the truth was that he could not enter the Dai residence at all, let alone see young Master Dai. When Gu Yundong saw this, he lowered his eyes and fell into deep thought. It seemed that because Dai Wenhuo had bought her aunt and uncle, Zhou Dafu had indeed climbed up the ladder and started to build a relationship with him. In the end, she was the one who caused this trouble for Dai Wenhuo. Should she cut off Zhou Dafu's hope? However, just as she thought about this, someone suddenly walked out of the door in a hurry. At first, this person didn't notice Zhou Dafu and his wife outside, so he didn't manage to avoid them in time and was seen by Zhou Dafu. Zhou Dafu's eyes immediately lit up, and he suddenly rushed forward. His speed was as fast as a rabbit, and it was completely disproportionate to his fat body. Guard Dai. Dai Zhong subconsciously dodged to avoid being hit by Zhou Dafu. When he took a closer look, his expression immediately twisted. How unlucky. How did she bump into him? Zhou Dafu heaved a sigh of relief and took 2 steps forward to block Dai Zhong. Guard Dai, I've finally seen you. Hurry up and tell that gatekeeper if young Master Dai knows me. I've given young Master Dai 2 servants last time. Hey, old Master Zhou, please be careful with your words. Dai Zhong stretched out his hand and hurriedly interrupted him. He said with a serious expression, What do you mean by giving our young master 2 servants? Those 2 people were bought by our young master. Old Master Zhou hasn't forgotten that the contract was written in black and white, right? Our young master still has that contract. Moreover, old Master Zhou's price wasn't low. These 2 servants cost a total of 50 taels of silver. This much money is enough for our young master to buy 5 servants. Moreover, one of them has crippled legs, and the other is sallow, thin, and covered in injuries. No matter what, our young master has suffered. In that case, it's old Master Zhou who tricked our young master. Trick? Tricked young Master Dai? How did it become a trick? Dai Zhong nodded and said very seriously, isn't that so? Our young master has never suffered such a huge loss. Old Master Zhou, you have good methods. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 877, She's Still Stupid as a Pig. Gu Yundong did not know that Dai Zhong was such a good talker. He immediately covered his mouth and laughed. Tong Shuetao whispered in her ear, Miss, old Master Zhou is about to die of anger. Serves him right. He still wants to use what happened that day to get involved with the Dai family. If it's really that easy, he can forget about being the prefecture magistrate. On the other side, Zhou Dafu and Steward Zhou were stunned. How could this happen? Although he had received 50 taels of silver, he only thought that Dai Wenhuo was generous. Moreover, he had made Bien Han sound so powerful as if he was thirsty for talent. Who had not spent a lot of money for something they loved? 50 taels of silver was nothing. How could he know that Dai Wenhuo had given him the 50 taels and was still waiting for him to reduce the money? As for the contract, he clearly said that he signed it so that no one would criticize him. Why had it become evidence that they were done with each other? Dai Zhong snorted coldly. It's just a normal transaction. I hope old Master Zhou doesn't think too much. With that, he turned around and left. The gatekeeper had also heard the gist of it. Since Guardian Dai Zhong had said so, he was certain that the 2 of them had nothing to do with the young master. Therefore, he turned around and closed the door with a bang. Zhou Dafu looked at the closed door in a daze and finally gave up on his fantasies. Dai Wenhuo really didn't like him. His face instantly turned ferocious. He raised his leg and kicked the wall beside him. Steward Zhou turned pale with fright and hurriedly pulled Zhou Dafu back a few steps. Master, you must calm down. If this wall is broken, the prefecture magistrate will probably blame us later. We don't have a backer in the Xuanhe prefecture. Zhou Dafu's face was ashen as he panted heavily. Dai Wenhuo, how dare he scheme against me? Steward Zhou almost covered his mouth again. When he heard that, he immediately pulled Zhou Dafu to the side. Master, actually, I think that perhaps this can't be completely blamed on young Master Dai. I think that it might be that the Bien couple who spoke ill of our residence in front of young Master Dai. The 2 of them suffered in the Zhou residence, so they have to take revenge. The best way is to make young Master Dai have a problem with you. Zhou Dafu frowned and felt that it made sense. Then he remembered that it was concubine Gu who caused Bien Han to hate the Zhou mansion. He gnashed his teeth. Gu Qiuyue is such a bitch. If she had treated her sister and brother-in-law better, we could have made use of this relationship to bond with Master Dai. But she is as stupid as a pig. Steward Zhou was speechless. He suddenly slapped his mouth. Who told you to speak so quickly and mention something you shouldn't have? He quickly changed the topic and said, Master, what should we do now? What else can we do? Go back. Zhou Dafu turned around and walked back angrily. Gu Yundong came out from the corner. Let's go and follow them. Yes, my lady. The carriage was too big of a target, so Tong Shuetao knocked on the back door of the Dai residence and asked the gatekeeper to help look after the carriage. The gatekeeper knew Gu Yundong and immediately agreed. Gu Yundong and Zhou Dafu followed. Initially, they thought that Zhou Dafu would return to the residence directly. They did not know what Steward Zhou had said, but when they reached the entrance of the tea house that Gu Yundong had gone to, the 2 of them suddenly turned around and entered. Gu Yundong looked up. After hesitating for a moment, she lowered her head slightly and went upstairs. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 878, Strange Steward Zhou. Zhou Dafu's seat was in the corner. Yundong chose a seat where she could see them, but it was not easy for them to see her. Fortunately, there were many people coming and going in the tea house at this time, so no one paid much attention to them. Naturally, Zhou Dafu and his servant were the same. Yundong ordered a pot of tea, a stack of peanuts, a plate of cucumbers, and slowly ate with Tong Shuitao. There were even storytellers in the tea house. With a clap of the wooden stick, their voices were raised and immediately received cheers from the entire hall. Yundong had never heard of it before and was a little curious. On the other hand, Tong Shuitao was not very interested in this storytelling. This person spoke genteelly and liked to keep people in suspense. In the end, there were only a few familiar stories. They were not as good as the little stories that Miss had told young master and the others. Hence, Tong Shuitao had been paying attention to Zhou Dafu and his servant the entire time. After Yundong listened for a while, Tong Shuitao suddenly said in surprise, "Miss, why is old Master Zhou drinking? This is a tea house. He treats it as a tavern. If he wants to drink, why doesn't he go to a tavern? Drink?" Yundong finally shifted his gaze to Zhou Dafu. As expected, Zhou Dafu was drinking. It was unknown if he was drowning his sorrows with alcohol. Steward Zhou, who was beside him, not only did he not stop him, he even persuaded him. Yundong narrowed her eyes. This was a little strange. There was also wine in the tea house, but it was suitable for drinking a few cups. After he gulped it down, it quickly attracted the waiter. He probably knew Zhou Dafu and went forward to persuade him. Zhou Dafu was frustrated and took 2 more big gulps. Steward Zhou pulled the waiter to the side and said softly, "Our master is in a bad mood now. Hell, just drink 2 more glasses. Don't worry. With me here to take care of him, even if he's drunk, he won't go crazy." The waiter frowned and wanted to say something, but Zhou Dafu suddenly tilted his head and fell unconscious. Yundong was speechless. Tong Shuitao chuckled. With his alcohol tolerance, he still has the cheek to drink? The waiter sighed and looked at Steward Zhou. "Your master is drunk. It's better to send him back first." At least it was as he had said and they did not make a fuss. Steward Zhou immediately nodded. "Don't worry, I'll help him back now." As he spoke, he grabbed his arm and placed it on her shoulder. He slowly stood up, and failed. After trying twice, Steward Zhou knelt back down. He laughed dryly at the waiter, who hurriedly said, "I'll help your master back with you." Steward Zhou refused without hesitation. "No need, no need. You see, there are many guests now and you're very busy. There are still guests calling you over. How about this? I'll go back and get someone to come over immediately. The Zhou mansion isn't far away. I'll be back soon." Before the waiter could say anything, he had already gone downstairs. Tong Shuitao was dumbfounded. She said softly, "Miss, what exactly is Steward Zhou doing? Why do I feel that something is wrong? He just left old Master Zhou there and ran off. Doesn't he care? Isn't he afraid that something will happen?" Yundong also found it very strange. She got up and walked to the window, looking down. Steward Zhou had just run out of the tea house and even turned to look upstairs. Yundong hurriedly retracted her head and waited for Steward Zhou to run away before looking over again. But strangely, Steward Zhou was indeed running in the direction of the Zhou mansion. Chapter 879, Qiuyue is here. Yundong returned to her seat. Tong Shuitao hurriedly came over and asked, "Miss, how is it? What does Steward Zhou want to do?" "I don't know. Let's watch here first. He'll come back eventually." "Okay." Tong Shuitao looked at Zhou Dafu as she ate. Although Zhou Dafu's character was not good, he had a good behavior. Once he was drunk, he would lie on the table and sleep. It was fine if he did not cause trouble, but he did not even snore. Moreover, his hands and feet were well behaved and did not move at all. After nearly 15 minutes, Steward Zhou still had not returned. The waiter was a little worried. Seeing that there were not many customers, he almost ran to the Zhou mansion personally. Even Gu Yundong thought that she had guessed wrongly and that Steward Zhou might not return. At this moment, Steward Zhou appeared. Not only him, but there were also 2 people following behind him. Gu Yundong took a closer look. Oh, isn't this Mrs. Ren? Behind her is Qiuyue, who is disguised as a man. Tong Shuetao also recognized her and immediately widened her eyes. Miss, it's Qiuyue. I know. Quickly turn your head around. Qiuyue seemed to have a guilty conscience. At this moment, she kept looking back at her surroundings, as if she was afraid that others would recognize her. However, she did not even think about it. Was it appropriate to dress up as a man without even tightening her chest? Especially since her hair was not combed neatly in a hurry, she did not look like a servant at all. The waiter stood at the side and was at a loss for words. He thought that Steward Zhou had gone back to call for guards. What was the use of calling a weak woman back? Steward Zhou pretended not to see his gaze. Time was really tight, and most of the people in the snow-blowing garden were Mrs. Zhou's men. It was not easy to bring them out, so he could only disguise himself slightly. Although Qiuyue was a woman, she was stronger than most ladies and madams. At least, she was better than Mrs. Ren, who was old and frail. Therefore, even though Zhou Dafu was slightly plump, she and Steward Zhou supported him from both sides. There was also Mrs. Ren behind him, so there was no big problem. It was just a little strenuous. The waiter was also trembling in fear, afraid that the 2 of them would drop old Master Zhou, especially when they went downstairs. He had been leading the way. It was not until the 2 of them walked out of the tea house that the waiter heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Yundong, who was on the 2nd floor, was deep in thought. She did not understand what was going on. What were Steward Zhou and Qiuyue up to? Since he wanted to send the drunk old Master Zhou back, Steward Zhou could have just found the concierge. Why did he have to do this? Miss, what do they want to do? Could it be that they want to harm old Master Zhou and kill him for money? Gu Yundong glanced at her. How is that possible? What good will old Master Zhou's death do them? Once he dies, the person in charge of the residence will be Mrs. Zhou, and the person who will inherit the assets will be Mrs. Zhou's son. Qiuyue will be the first to be tortured to death. She paused. Let's go and take a look. Tong Shuetao hurriedly put down the tea money and followed Gu Yundong out of the tea house. The 2 of them quickly saw Zhou Dafu and the others walking in front. They supported someone and naturally walked slowly. However, not long after, Mrs. Ren suddenly took a few quick steps forward. Just as she was about to reach the Zhou mansion, she suddenly turned to the left. Then, Steward Zhou and Qiuyue helped Zhou Dafu turn and followed. Gu Yundong.